Yuki is an antisocial loser destined to die a virgin, but this takes a turn when he gets forced in a death tournament to pick the next god, so he has no choice but to team up with a freaky psycho baddie who is obsessed with him. Now she will make him win, so she will be able to taste his godly sausage for eternity. Before the game begins, Yuki spends most of his time observing others and writing in his diary because he never has plans after school. For his whole life he constantly turned down invitations to hang out, which slowly shaped him into the solitary person he is today. When he gets home, he goes straight to his room and imagines talking to his friend, Deus Ex Machina, the god of time-space. His other imaginary friend, Murmur, tells him that his diary is pointless and he agrees, but Deus confronts him about his loneliness and offers him a chance to change it by giving him the future. A sudden message appears on Yuki's phone, directly from Deus, but he ignores it, assuming it's just his imagination. The next morning, Yuki wakes up to a diary entry detailing his whole day into the future. Thinking he wrote it in his sleep, he tests it by throwing a dart, hitting a double bullseye exactly as the diary predicted, but he dismisses it and continues his morning. While eating breakfast, he watches a news broadcast that perfectly matches his diary entry. It also predicts he will run into Yoji and Shireishi, which happens on his way to school, though he still thinks it's a coincidence. In class, the diary helps him ace a math quiz. At lunch, Shoji bullies him, and later in chemistry, a student cuts her finger, and both events are already recorded in the diary. On his way home, the diary warns him that detectives will question students near the school about a psychopath that has been lurking in the area, and the prediction comes true. When Yuki returns home, Deus tells him the diary entries come from the future, and warns that breaking the phone will instantly erase him from existence. Yuki doesn't believe him, thinking Deus is only a made-up god in his mind. But Deus insists he's hella real. Soon, rumors spread about Yuki cheating and even using drugs to get ahead. He takes first place in the school rankings, angering classmates who plot to ambush him, but he avoids them easily thanks to the diary. Days later, during class, Oji compliments him about an assignment they haven't been taught yet, while Yuki stays quiet, already knowing the answers. Suddenly, the school idol, Yuno, locks eyes with him, which makes him feel uncomfortable. After school, he sees a sculpture of Murmur on Yuno's seat, despite Murmur being a creation of his imagination. Yuki panics when his diary suddenly shows a dead end, telling him he'll die at the hands of the psychopath. Just then, Yuno enters the classroom and confronts him about the diary, telling him that she already knows about it. Yuki starts running, and his diary updates, predicting that he will be chased by Yuno, cornered in a building and die. Another dead end. Yuki runs into a building and takes the elevator, but Yuno forces it open with her bare hands. Just as he thinks his life is over, she blows his mind by kissing him. She reveals she has her own future diary, one that updates every 10 minutes with everything about Yuki, which she calls the Future Diary of Love. She warns that a psychopath with a future diary is targeting him, and explains that these diaries can be both powerful weapons and dangerous weaknesses. Yuno then introduces him to a deadly survival game where diary owners try to end each other, which includes the psychopath, so she suggests that they strike first using Yuki's darts. Then, when the psychopath arrives, the duo is nowhere in sight, and they are quietly hiding waiting for the perfect moment. Suddenly, the psychopath pulls out his diary, and Yuno attacks, giving an opening for Yuki to destroy the psychopath's phone with a dart, causing him to vanish instantly. While Yuki is in shock, Yuno is unimpressed and suggests that they get something to eat as his mother isn't home, unsettling Yuki with her deep knowledge of his personal life. Later, Deus explains that Yuki has been officially drawn into the survival game, and that there are many other diary owners. He takes Yuki and Yuno to a council of diary holders, and the others are impressed by Yuki's victory over a diary owner, and by the fact that he is the first diary user. Deus explains that their futures can be changed by themselves or by others, and survival is the only goal. He then declares that the winner will inherit Deus's throne and become the god of space and time. After avoiding his own death, Deus declares that Yuki is his favorite, and hearing this makes Yuki realize he has become a target for every other diary holder, sending chills down his pathetic spine. When the meeting ends, fear crawls under his skin, but Yuno appears behind him and promises to protect him. At midnight, Yuki struggles to sleep as constant messages from Yuno keep him awake. He feels uneasy knowing she has a future diary that updates every 10 minutes with information about him, and the thought makes him believe she is stalking or obsessing over him. At school, his usual teacher is absent, and Yuki feels the weight of guilt and fear. He has just clapped someone's life, and now other diary owners are after him, each determined to become god. He believes telling anyone about his own future diary would put him in even more danger, and the only person who knows is Yuno, but he does not trust her because of her weird obsession with him. During class, Yuki tries to reach out to Yuno, but she brushes him off, promising to meet him after school. Suddenly, a random girl, Minnie, knocks on the classroom door and asks him for the absent teacher. She claims she is searching for him, then casually informs Yuki that the masked psychopath was actually his absent teacher. She touches his future diary, making him tense, and explains that the teacher had a murder diary but was ended by the first diary owner, which she knows is Yuki. Suddenly, he sees his diary hit a dead end, but Yuno arrives just in time, saving him from the psycho chick. Minnie declares herself more dangerous than the third diary owner, jumps out of a window, and detonates explosives on the top floor of the school, resulting in hundreds of casualties. She announces that she has taken the entire school hostage with sensor-activated bombs placed throughout the building, and they will activate if anyone tries to leave. Meanwhile, Yuki survives the explosion thanks to Yuno, but the reality of the danger terrifies him. Realizing he could die at any moment, he decides to use her as his protection. He asks her to guard him, and she promises to end anyone who tries to harm him, sealing the deal by kissing him.
Yeah, boy.
As they head for the stairs, Yuno lingers over the kiss and gets flustered over it. His diary reaches another dead end, so they change direction, and the diary updates again due to their actions. Yuno comforts him, explaining more about how their diary will also change, as Mainini makes her move, even though they don't. She insists they must always stay 3 steps ahead. Hearing that, Yuki warns that the next classroom will explode, and Yuno saves him just in time. The diary updates again, and she saves him once more, leaving Yuki impressed by her ability. Minini's own diary updates, revealing that Yuki is running through the school. Yuki begins to feel that having Yuno makes escaping easier, but he narrowly avoids another explosion. Realizing his diary only records what he observes, not what happens directly to him. This frightens him deeply, but Yuno reassures him, claiming that as long as she is by his side, he is invincible, as her diary only consists of what's going to happen to him. Her words make Yuki cry, and he starts opening up to her about how he has always been a weak, pathetic bystander who doesn't do anything. But now he cries as he realizes how much he wanted to make friends and not be a useless bystander. Yuno comforts him and encourages him to keep going, saying that his friends are all waiting for him on the other side of the school, so they decide to get to them before the next predicted dead end. Outside, the police surround the school. Keigo, another diary owner, orders them to wait and warns them that if Minini's heart stops, the bombs could go off at random, taking more innocent lives. Then Yuki and Yuno return to their classroom, and Yuki sees his friends, but Yuno is confused on seeing them in the hallway without the bomb exploding. They all capture Yuki after Minini called them and announced she would release the hostages in exchange for Yuki. Terrified of the bombs, the students hand him over. Yuki is brought before Minini, who warns against any rescue attempt, explaining that landmines are set throughout the school. From a distance, Yuno watches his betrayal, feeling guilty for suggesting they meet the others in the first place, and even telling him that he has friends. She realizes that none of them are his friends, and her desire to protect him overwhelms her, so she rushes downstairs, triggering several explosions, not caring that people are dying in the process. Yuki watches the whole thing and feels guilty for using Yuno, and now blames himself for the deaths of his friends. Minini tells him not to worry, as the bombs will explode in 10 minutes. Suddenly a bullet shoots a piece of Minini's hair and pops up Keigo, another diary user, explaining that Mininin's not after Yuki, but she's using Yuki to get to Keigo's diary, the investigation diary, which prophesies crime before it happens. But unlike a lot of diary users, Keigo has no interest in becoming a god. Minini then demands that Keigo shoot Yuki and himself, or she will blow up the school. Keigo hesitates, as his diary solves crimes but does not take lives. However, he points the gun at Yuki, all to save lives, but to his surprise, feeling hopeless, Yuki tells him to go ahead and shoot him, admitting he has been a failure who used Yuno and his friends. Yuno suddenly crashes through a window and attacks Minini, but she repels her. Keigo lowers his gun and tells Yuki to end Minini himself so he will not feel like a loser anymore. Encouraged, Yuki charges toward Minini, dodging every mine with Yuno calling out the locations. Furious, Minini turns her attack on Yuno, knocking her down. Just as Minini is about to blow everything, students begin throwing books at Minini, distracting her. A mine blows up, sending Yuki into Minini, and using his dart he aims for her diary, but it stabs her left eye instead. Injured, Minini deploys a smoke bomb and escapes on her motorcycle, revealing she possesses the escape diary. Hours later, Keigo warns Yuki that more diary owners will come after him, and they must work together to end the game. Yuki agrees, shaking his hand. He also invites Yuno to join, and she happily accepts, confident in her diary's vision of them living happily ever after. At the police station, Keigo explains to Yuki and Yuno that he wants to end the survival game because he doesn't want more deaths. To do that, they must identify all the owners of the future diaries. They know about 5 owners so far, including themselves, and still need to find the other 7, since there are 12 in total. Keigo reminds them that they are excused from school after the recent bombing incident, so he gives them a mission and sends them to Sakurami's amusement park to act as bait, since Yuki is a target. At the amusement park, Yuki and Yuno spend the day together. As they walk together, Yuki begins to think this feels less like a mission and more like a silly distraction, but being alone with her gives him the chance to wonder why she follows him so closely. During lunch, Yuki tries to ask her directly, but she sidesteps the question, and instead gets him to drink from the same glass with her. They continue exploring the park, even going through a haunted house. For the first time, Yuki sees Yuno scared, and realizes there is a softer, more vulnerable side beneath her terrifying nature. Later, they visit the water park, and Yuki feels embarrassed about how introverted he is, but Yuno pulls him into the pool. He notices her playful body, but the moment quickly turns awkward when her swimwear drifts away. He tries to get it back for her, but Yuno tells him to let the staff handle it. Her tone changes, and for the first time, Yuki sees her genuinely angry. After he notifies a staff member, a stranger bumps into Yuno, and she hugs Yuki tightly in embarrassment, pressing against him while begging him not to let her go. When the staff returns her swimsuit, Yuki faints from the overwhelming experience. Next, Yuno wants to go to the planetarium, knowing that Yuki loves astronomy, but Yuki refuses and chooses the merry-go-round instead. Inside one of the the cars, he again asks why she follows and stalks him around, but instead of answering, Yuno asks Yuki why he didn't want to go to the planetarium. He accuses her of using the diary to learn about his love for space, but she denies using the diary to learn about his love for astronomy and celebs he told her himself a year ago, when he was struggling with fulfilling his dreams for the future. Back then, she decided to help him fill it out, and saw that he wanted to see the stars with his family, and he revealed that his parents had gotten divorced. Yuki says he wants to change his dreams, knowing his dream is impossible, but Yuno gives a new answer that she wants to become his bride in the future so they can stare together as a family. That is why she follows him, and her words make Yuki feel strangely safe, though he still suspects she's hiding something, but she kisses his forehead to assure him that she's not hiding anything from him. As they head home, rain begins to fall. They stop at a convenience store, and Yuno buys an umbrella for them. She invites Yuki to her house, and once there, he feels uneasy and tries to leave, but she insists he stay until the rain stops. Meanwhile, in an abandoned building, Minnie dreams about her tragic past. As a child, soldiers destroyed her war-torn hometown. She wakes to see her younger self in the mirror, becomes enraged, and shatters it with a rock. She swears she will not lose the survival game, and she wants revenge for her life. She undresses, steps into the midnight rain, and uses her escape diary to avoid police. She spots a cop nearby, but a man watches her from the shadows. Tired, Minnie rests by the roadside and checks her diary, but it shows no escape route. The man approaches, offering help and tends to her injuries. Since her diary shows nothing dangerous, she follows him to a secluded house in the woods. He gives her medicine, and the diary remains silent. But soon unease sets in. She begins to suspect he is a future diary owner, and her suspicion proves right when he reveals she has been hypnotized and is holding a block of wood instead of her diary. Being drugged, Minnie feels weak, and the man touches her eye and pulls it out. At Yuno's house, she tells Yuki the electricity is out and hands him a candle before going to peel an apple in the kitchen. Yuki suddenly needs to pee, and while searching for the bathroom, he can't find it and checks his diary. It says he will eat the apple she gives him, and that if he doesn't open the nearby room, they will have a happy ending. Driven by curiosity, Yuki decides to defy it, which affects every single diary user in the game. He opens the room and finds a bloodbath inside. At the same time, Deus's causality begins to unravel, but he's fascinated as he watches Yuki break fate. Deus twists events again, pulling the diary owners into Sakurami City and creating miracles that shouldn't exist, as he finds Yuki's actions entertaining. Frozen in shock, Yuki stares at the corpses. Yuno appears behind him, crying, saying that her perfect world had shattered, and questioning why he had to open that door. Terrified, Yuki runs from her house and doesn't stop until he reaches his own. Confused and shaken about what he saw, he tries to collect himself. Then comes a knock at his door from Yuno, who is trying to get inside. Yuki quickly hides himself in his room, shaken by what he just saw at Yuno's home. He feels certain that whatever bloodbath she is keeping there, she caused it. As the rain falls outside and the silence in the room grows heavy, he reaches for his phone to call Keigo, but before he can, a message from Yuno appears, and he realizes that every move he makes seems to be known to her, leaving him unable to escape or contact Keigo. The next morning, Keigo arrives to pick him up. Yuki apologizes for not calling or informing him after leaving Yuno's place. He tries to explain what happened the night before, but Yuno pops up and interrupts. While acting cute, she warns him not to talk about anything embarrassing from her house, making Keigo think they did the freaky deed, and the fear silences Yuki completely. Keigo takes both Yuki and Yuno to the Omakate Shrine, where Minini is being held by a cult. He knows from his investigation diary that something is wrong, and he needs their help. Then, Keigo secures permission from the cult members to meet the cult's leader, but they must wear religious garments before entering. However, even before they meet her, the cult leader Tsubaki already knows about their backgrounds, and she shows interest in Yuki because he has escaped death twice, but sees Yuno as a massive threat. Inside the shrine, Yuki is startled to see Tsubaki confined in a cage. She greets them, introduces herself, and asks Yuki to come closer so she can see his face. Noticing something strange about her eyes, Yuki listens as she explains that her eyesight has been weak since birth, forcing her to live inside the cage. She says she spends her days writing down the stories of visitors in her diary. But several weeks ago, the diary began telling her about future events in faraway places, something she calls the clairvoyance diary. Yuki, Yuno, and Keigo realize she is the sixth future diary owner. Keigo grows tense, knowing that any wrong move might require the police to retard the shrine, but Tsubaki already knows his thoughts and calls him out. Nervous, Yuki hides behind Keigo, fearing that she might harm him. Tsubaki laughs softly and assures them she has no desire to become god. As a priestess, she celebs to hear the voice of the gods. She reveals that Minini is being kept in the underground prison, and says they can do whatever they want with her, but she wants Yuki in return. She reveals that her diary has reached a dead end with her dying that night, and only Yuki has managed to avoid that fate twice. Yuno rejects the idea immediately, but Keigo hesitates, caught between arresting Minini or letting Tsubaki die, either of which could end badly. Both Keigo and Yuno press Yuki for a decision, cornering him. Hours later, Yuki decides to stay the night at the shrine. While his room is being prepared, Tsubaki warns him that Yuno is dangerous. She celebs her diary says so and mocks Yuno as she speaks. At the same time, Yuno's own diary warns her that Tsubaki is revealing parts of her past, which fills her with rage. Then, without warning, all future diaries suddenly reset. A fire breaks out in Tsubaki's cage, and one of her followers accidentally throws gasoline on it, making the blaze worse. Then, panic spreads as the cult's followers suddenly begin attacking each other. Yuki rushes to save Tsubaki, but Yuno blocks him, insisting that Tsubaki is using him and it will end in his death. Yuki refuses to believe her and finally confronts her about the hidden room in her house, accusing her of planning to end his life that very night, and says that he can't trust her. Yuno breaks down in tears, but Yuki moves forward to help Tsubaki anyway. As he steps into the cage, the sprinklers activate, and his diary reveals that someone else switched them off. But he assumes that Kigo turned them back on. Seeing the massacre of her people, Tsubaki orders her followers to stop, and they obey. She thanks Yuki for saving her and explains that someone is hypnotizing them. Yuno, watching closely, suspects that Tsubaki told Yuki something about her and breastwashed him. Jealousy and heartbreak ignite inside her, and she begins to plot Tsubaki's death. In the underground prison, the man who captures Minini explains that she cannot beat Tsubaki, as her ability to see the future always gives her the advantage. But he informs her that if Tsubaki becomes confused, her diary will feel. He then reveals his inspiration from Kamen Rider, puts on his costume, and shows himself as the 12th future diary owner. Back in the shrine, Yuki tries calling Keigo, but there is no answer. Tsubaki shows Yuki her diary, which lists intruders identified by her followers. Suddenly, the diary changes, labeling everyone as intruders. Realizing her followers are hypnotized, she can no longer tell who the enemies are. Just then, Yuno attempts to enter the cage with an axe, but Yuki stops her and asks her to get outside. He senses danger from Yuno, grabs Tsubaki, and brings her outside. However, Yuno confronts Tsubaki for not being trustworthy, and Tsubaki insists she still has a plan, but Yuno warns that she will die today, forcing the future diary to change. It suddenly predicts that Yuki will be killed today by enemies, sending fear through him. While the 12th is confident that he will win this battle, Minini warns him that Yuno will destroy his plan because she is unpredictable and dangerous. In that moment, Yuno notices something unusual about the dead corpses, and sees that the followers are only pretending to be dead. She starts whacking their heads, and orders Yuki to take an axe and fight, shocking the 12th, who thought victory was his. Yuki and Yuno fight back, realizing the hypnotized followers are faking death, and Yuno tells Tsubaki she will serve as bait until Yuki escapes. Then she gives Yuki an ultimatum to either choose her and live, or choose Tsubaki and die. The ultimatum leaves him unsettled, and she points out that he could have simply run away, leaving Tsubaki behind since the hypnotist target is her, not him. But Yuki feels useless, believing his role is to save Tsubaki. Since childhood, due to her eyesight, Tsubaki's vision extends no farther than her arms. Out of pity, her parents invented the story of her clever voyance, the ability to see the future, and built the Omikata shrine and the cult to place her on a pedestal as a priestess. But the truth is, Tsubaki never has such powers, and her parents craft the story to elevate her to become a figurehead for the cult. Even so, Tsubaki finds happiness, and her parents are kind, and the shrine draws many visitors. She knows nothing about the outside world but never feels lonely, until the day her parents die in an accident. After that, the shrine elders turn her into a cleanser, a vessel for outsiders to purge their sins. People come to use her like a toy, believing the act absolves them. The abuse becomes a layerly, and her only comfort is her mother's memento ball. But when the ball disappears from the world outside of her sight, hatred for the outside world takes root in her heart. Back in the present, Yuno ends one of Tsubaki's followers and drags Yuki outside, but Yuki insists on bringing Tsubaki with him, as it is his mission. Keigo calls, apologizing for not answering earlier, as he has been repairing the sprinkler system. Yuki explains the situation, and Keigo tells him to head for the main gate, where he will be protected. He promises to call in backup while continuing to search for Minini. In the underground prison, 12th tells Minini that he possesses the Justice Future Diary, an audio recorder that informs him of what is right and wrong. He believes Tsubaki's actions are wrong, and has planned an attack based on the diary's predictions, even though he was her ally at first. He explained that every move he made at the lodge, including small tasks like cleaning, when the diary labeled it trash, was dictated by its entries. Suddenly, the diary hits a dead end. Expecting trouble ahead, 12th arms himself with Minini's bombs and offers her the prison key if she wishes to escape. At the main gate, Yuno arrives with Yuki and Tsubaki. The hypnosis over Tsubaki's followers is broken, and Yuno urges Yuki to leave. But Tsubaki wants to fight, confident now that her followers are free. It creates tension between the two girls, and Yuki fears the two will slaughter each other, knowing that Yuno is unhinged. Suddenly, Keigo calls again, revealing that 12th is heading towards them. He explains that 12th is blind but has exceptional hearing, something Keigo knows because he now holds Minini hostage. Yuki, Yuno, and Tsubaki spot 12th on the roof, and they see that there are 5 of him, But the group remains unimpressed, seeing that it's a Kamen Kamen Rider act. Declaring himself Justice, 12th accuses Tsubaki of orchestrating everything with her cult and tricking Yuki. 12th declares that his goal is to end Tsubaki and restore justice. They declare that one of the 5 figures is real and is a bomber, while the rest are illusions from hypnosis. But his diary has reached its dead end, and he accepts that justice may end here. Yuno tries to escape with Yuki, but Yuki refuses to abandon Tsubaki. 12th charges, and Yuki uses his diary to locate the real one, which he identifies as the second from the left. But the group shuffles positions, confusing him. Thinking fast, Yuno throws a rock, and the regal 12th, being blind, fails to react. She strikes and ends him, while his body falls from the bridge and explodes. Hearing the blast, Minin panics, demanding that Keigo return her diary before they get surrounded. Yuki rushes to Yuno, who has fought for him, and realizes that she's having a fever, but Tsubaki drops her harmless act and captures them both. She smugly informs them that she tricked all of them to get what she wants, and that deception is part of life, and declares her intent to end them both to become a god. Yuki asks her if she's not a servant to God, but tells him that she stopped believing the day she lost her purity to the hands of her filthy followers. Believing she has won, she French kisses Yuki as her final goodbye right in front of Yuno, but to her shock, she sees that her dead end is still there, and her death is still in her future. Suddenly, out of anger, Yuno slashes her guard and eyes for Tsubaki's diary, but ends up chopping her arm instead for what she did to Yuki. She then hands Yuki her diary, and Yuno orders him to escape while she acts as a distraction. Meanwhile, Keigo and Minine watch from the bridge, but Keigo's backup tweets at the gate and can't enter. Minine demands her handcuffs be removed, but Keigo insists on a deal first. Inside the shrine, followers tend to Tsubaki's wound, as she vows to use Yuno as bait to lure Yuki, and slaughter him before her eyes, and then erase the world as a god after the horrible things she had endured in it. Beneath the shrine, Yuki discovers that in Yuno's diary, he finds entries from the date they shared at an amusement park, and from it, he realizes that Yuno truly loves him and wants to protect him. Meanwhile, Tsubaki strips Yuno, threatening to treat her in the same way the world treated her, to draw Yuki in. Hearing Yuno's screams, Yuki feels fear and hesitates in saving her. But after reading the diary, he decides he can trust Yuno alone. Suddenly, he spots Tsubaki's mother's memento ball, takes it, and heads into the shrine. As he runs, he remembers the date he had with Yuno, and how she professed her love to him, which gives him the push to save her. When he reaches the shrine, he starts swinging to save Yuno, and Tsubaki taunts him for walking into her trap. Tsubaki boasts about her ability to predict his every move, but Yuki counters that his diary can do the same. Yuki gives Yuno his jacket to cover herself, and tells her that he chose her, declaring that they will win. Suddenly, Yuki steps forward, tossing the memento ball into the air, causing all followers to look up, leaving her diary open to attacks. Tsubaki instinctively moves to protect her diary, but forgets that her arm is severed. In that moment, Yuki throws a dart, destroying her diary and ending her life. The ball rolls into her, but it's too late, and she couldn't grab it before she disappears. Yuno crawls to Yuki in tears, and he apologizes to her for being late. Later, the police shut down the shrine, and while resting in a van, Yuki remains conflicted about his feelings for Yuno, knowing she lives with corpses, but even then he kisses her, and her diary updates with a happy ending. Meanwhile, Minini escapes after striking a deal with Keigo to exchange email addresses, which leaves her curious about his next move. Some days later, Yuki tweets at the train station for his mother, and he avoids checking his future diary, forcing himself to tweet until she arrives. Then they take a taxi home, and his mother, Ria, spends the ride teasing him about having a girlfriend. Yuki refuses to tell her that Yuno fills that role, as in his eyes, Yuno is more of a stalker than a future wife. When they arrive, Ria is shocked to see signs of a break-in. Yuki instantly realizes that Yuno is responsible for this, and runs to his room, where she greets him while tidying up, eager to make a good impression and get his mother's blessing. He demands she leave, not wanting his mother to find out about her. But Ria heads to the kitchen to cook, and finds dinner already prepared. Ria goes upstairs to check on him, and he panics and shoves Yuno into the wardrobe just as Ria enters. Surprised by the cleanliness, she listens as Yuki claims to have cooked and cleaned himself, while keeping a firm grip on the wardrobe door as Yuno pushes from inside. Yuno's diary shows her that Yuki will grow closer to his mother, and she plans to emerge at the perfect time to join them. She pushes the door and calls his name, raising Ria's suspicion, which he quickly dismisses. When Yuno's voice slips out again, Ria presses him about hiding a girl in the closet. He denies it, and while both girls are pressing him, Yuki quickly hugs her and steers her out, locking the door behind him. He then finds Yuno looking through his secret Mia Khalifa stash, and being flustered, he snatches the Gooning magazine from her, but Ria unlocks the door and takes it herself. After being caught, they have dinner together, and as Yuno's diary predicts, Yuki introduces her to Ria. She's impressed by Yuno's cooking, and Ria warms to her quickly, even talking to her about marrying her pathetic son. Yuno agrees to everything to win her over, and Ria jokes about how fast her son is growing, while Yuki feels trapped in a nightmare, watching them bond. His diary warns that Ria will invite Yuno to stay the night. Curious, he spies on them and is startled to see his baby photos on display, including all of his most exposed pictures. Feeling embarrassed, Yuki takes the album, but Ria sees no issues with it and plans to show Yuno more of his pictures, leaving Yuki defeated. Later, in the bathroom, Yuki runs out of toilet paper, and Yuno appears with a spare, exactly as her diary predicted, which angers him. Meanwhile, Minini visits her usual doctor to check her left eye, and he explained it was gouged clean, leaving no lasting damage, and gives her a special replacement. She wears it but keeps her eye patch. Then, noticing the children outside, she asks why he switched to pediatrics. He reveals that they are orphans from the cult incident, who are taken in by his hospital, which the public believes is an ordinary facility. She reflects on how authorities labeled the massacre as a cult's massacre, ignoring that an ordinary girl like Yuno caused it. And the doctor tells her how the children want revenge for their parents. But Minini scoffs, convinced that all parents dying before their children is something normal. Meanwhile, Deus observes the redeeming diary holders with interest after Tsubaki's death. While eating hot pot, Murmur tells him that each owner has unique strengths and flaws. Out of 12, only 9 remain, and 1 will ascend to God as Deus's time runs out. Back at Yuki's house, Ria tells him she is taking time off work to care for a boy whose parents died in the Omakata incident, and that he will stay with them for 3 days. At midnight, she invites Yuno to spend the night, and Yuki dislikes the idea, but Yuno accepts. Ria sets up a guest futon in Yuki's room and sleeps downstairs, warning him not to get too loud while being freaky. Then he looks at a family photo, and when he imagines Yuno as part of it, he thinks that feels impossible. Before bed, Yuno showers, with Ria providing a towel and soap, hoping she will care for her son, and Yuno thanks her and thinks of her own dead mother. That night, Yuno urges Yuki to bump uglies with her, but Yuki refuses her invitation to join her in bed, saying that he doesn't love her, but she assures him that he will fall in love in the future, showing how her diary told her that they will have a happy ending. Yuki tells her that he might change that future, but Yuno welcomes him to try, saying that she won't let anyone change it, not even him. Yuki can't believe what he just heard, and while he admits that he finds her cute, he can't overlook her darker side. Meanwhile, on her side of the room, Yuno psychopathically tells herself that if Ria were not kind, she might have had to harm her, and she feels relieved that she didn't have to hurt her. The next day, Yuki sees the boy Res is taking care of, Reisuke. He and Yuno go downstairs to greet him. Reisuke introduces himself, showing his puppet, and Res instructs him to treat them like siblings. Excited, he squeezes the puppet tightly, but inside he removes his shoes and clutches his dolls in irritation. Yuki suspects his parents were Tsubaki's followers, and sees a chance that Yuno is the reason they died. Reisuke draws a picture of Yuno, cuts it out, and hands it to her while holding scissors. He slips, nearly stabbing her, but she calmly calls it an accident, and shows that she got a pillow to block it. Res warns him to put the scissors away, and he does so. Then Reisuke uses the bathroom alone, quietly impressed by Yuno's resilience to survive his attack. Inside the bathroom, Reisuke's puppet tells him that the perfect match between the diaries of Yuki and Yuno makes their prediction ability nearly impossible to defeat. Compared to Reisuke's hypervisual diary, which only tells him about the future 3 times a day, Yuki and Yuno's diaries are far more valuable and give them a huge advantage. Despite Yuno clapping his parents' lives, Reisuke doesn't think much of it, as he just wants to prove he's better than both of them. He pulls out a bottle of poison, and at lunch, Rei and Reisuke are the ones who make the meal, and Reisuke prepares his special salad. He puts the poison inside the cherry tomatoes beforehand, but just as they are about to eat, Yuno notices something suspicious about the tomatoes. She grabs Yuki's bowl of salad and goes to throw it out, while Reisuke smiles, impressed by Yuno's focus. Just then, Yuki opens his future diary, and sees that his future has changed. Before bedtime, Reisuke goes to mix salt in Yuno's bathtub, as his new plan is to eliminate her by electrocution. Yuno apologizes to Reisuke for throwing away his salad, and says she hopes the murderer of his parents is caught soon. She heads for a bath, and Reisuke tries to follow her, bringing a power cord with him to electrocute her. Then Yuki's diary changes, and he sees that Yuno will get hurt in the bath due to someone electrocuting her. Yuki feels he doesn't have enough time to reach her, so he improvises and turns off the electricity. Reisuke attempts to electrocute Yuno, but feels because the power is cut. Yuki rushes to check on Yuno, worried. Suddenly, Reisuke bolts away wearing gloves, a clear sign to Yuki that he is the one who tried to eliminate her. Meanwhile, in Minini's lodge, she receives an image from Keigo, who informs her that they may have found the 5th owner, and that he's staying in Yuki's house. Minini smirks, as she knows Reisuke and is curious to see how Yuki struggles with the idea of facing him. She's also suspicious of Keigo's motives, questioning why he is giving her this intel, which makes her think he's hiding something. The next day, Yuki tries to find Reisuke's diary, while the boy is sleeping beside Ria. struggling to locate it. Yuno tells Yuki that they should just eliminate Reisuke, saying that it's easier and increases Yuki's chances of survival. Suddenly, Reisuke wakes up and confronts them, smugly saying they won't find his future diary. Yuki insists on searching, and continues looking through the house, while Reisuke keeps up his innocent act, following the script of his diary, because he's tweeting for something specific to happen in the afternoon. Then, in the afternoon, Yuki digs around the yard, looking for the diary. He asks Yuno if Reisuke went out with Ria, but Yuno is nowhere to be found. Suddenly, a loud crash sounds from inside the house, and he sees that Yuno is chasing Reisuke, after she had had enough and wants to clap him dead right then and there. Rhea hears the noise and comes to check, but as soon as she enters the room, Yuno accidentally hits her on the back of the neck, knocking her out. Yuki witnesses this and becomes furious, seeing that Yuno didn't listen to him. He carries his unconscious mother to her room and starts blaming Yuno. He tells her that if she truly wants to help him, she should try to find Reisuke's diary, since that's the fastest and cleanest solution. Feeling guilty, Yuno agrees. She heads to the kitchen and begins to meditate, and by using her imagination, she attempts to think like Reisuke and figure out where Reisuke hid his diary. After scanning the house through meditation, Yuno finally tells Yuki that the diary is inside the delivery package Reisuke received. Yuki rushes to take the package, but Yuno sees a new prediction in her diary that Yuki will be poisoned by gas. She tries to stop him, but Yuki opens the package anyway, triggering Reisuke's trap. Poison gas sprays out. Reisuke puts on a gas mask and mocks Yuki for falling for it. Yuno drags Yuki to the bathroom and tries to help him. As she works to purge the poison from his body, Reisuke keeps taunting her, which angers her. Yuno admits she's the one who clapped Reisuke's parents, and tells him to only battle her, but he shrugs it off. He still wants to end her in an elite way to prove his superiority. Yuno considers leaving, but Yuki pleads with her to stay. He doesn't want his mother involved. Reisuke then reveals that he put Ria outside the house to keep her from interfering. He challenges Yuno to a game of hide and seek, and if she wins, she can get the antidote for Yuki's poisoning. Yuki warns Yuno to be careful, as Reisuke will likely fill the house with traps. Yuno nods and starts her pursuit. She quickly falls into Reisuke's traps. She breaks a window, damages a stuffed bear, and steps on a sharp pin, all for Yuki's sake. Yuki notices that his diary keeps feeding him minor updates, meaning the future hasn't changed yet. He realizes he must take action, or the diary will continue writing everything that's about to happen. Yuno clears the first floor and moves upstairs. Suddenly, water begins pouring down the steps. Reisuke appears holding a power cord, and he electrocutes her successfully this time, calling it the elite way to end her. Yuno collapses on the stairs, but as Reisuke moves in for the final blow, Yuki throws darts to stop Reisuke and gives Yuno air through her mouth to recover. Yuki collapses afterward and Yuno corners Reisuke holding a knife. Without hesitation, she stabs him. Reisuke congratulates her for winning the game, and before dying, Reisuke gives her the antidote and warns her that doom is coming. And if the game continues, only Yuki and Yuno will be left in the end, and one of them will have to end the other. He asks Yuno what she'll do when that moment comes. Yuno doesn't respond, but Reisuke tells her she has to win after defeating him. After Reisuke's body vanishes, Yuno tries to bring the antidote downstairs to Yuki. However, she collapses too, as the gas has affected her as well. However, Minini retrieves the antidote and gives it to Yuki, while telling him bluntly that he has to eliminate Yuno, as she is his own biggest enemy. Weeks later, Deus holds a meeting to inform the returning players about the owners who have died. A reminder that the game is nearing its end. Suddenly, a man steps forward and tells Deus he has a special request to transfer his future diary to another individual. A twist that makes the game far more interesting. Later, Yuki still can't believe that Keigo hides the truth from Ryo. After Yuno strikes Ryo, she is rushed to the hospital. Yet Keigo, despite knowing everything, begins questioning her about Reisuke. On the way to his new school, Yuki is followed by Yuno. She compliments his outfit, but warns him not to use the future diary in this new environment, reminding him that the last time he used it, Minini appeared. Checking his diary, Yuki regards that he won't recognize a single face at school, except for one. Just then, Yuki notices someone watching him across the street, Akise. He tries to tell Yuno, but Akise vanishes before he can. Then, inside the classroom, Yuki walks nervously to the back, checks his diary, and finds it accurate. He takes his seat, only to hear laughter from the student in front, Oji. Yuki freezes in shock, seeing that they are in the same class. He can't meet Oji's eyes, remembering how he was his old bully and the first to betray him when Minini attacked the school. Oji mocks him openly, saying he is surprised Yuki dares to show his face at a new school after clapping everyone at the old one. The entire class hears it. Oji piles on, sneering that no matter how hard Yuki tries for a fresh start, he'll always be the lonely kid. Suddenly a student, Hinata, strikes Oji, shutting him up. She and another student, Mao, quickly come to Yuki's side, helping him settle in. Hinata helps him to his feet, but he slips, accidentally pulling down her pants. Mao snaps a picture as the rest of the class stares. Hinata smacks Yuki, and at that moment the teacher enters and begins class. The teacher warns them about a lurking psychopath. Shoji tries to spook Yuki with disturbing facts, but Hinata joins the discussion with her own insights. Mao chimes in as well, chatting with Yuki while Hinata points to the empty desk beside him, saying the student who sits there always skips school to play detective, an oddball named Akise. Despite his eccentricities, Mao admits that even she would ask Akise questions about a psychopath case. Speaking of him, Hinata suggests an idea for after school. When class ends, Yuki, Yuno, Hinata, Mao, and Shoji head to Central Park, a place known as the psychopath's hunting ground. Hinata marvels at how easily they slip past the police presence. Yuki grows uneasy, especially because Yuno looks irritated. While the others play around, Hinata invites Yuno to join, but Yuno keeps her distance, jealous of Yuki's closeness with his new friends and wanting to clap them all dead. Hinata, thrilled to explore the crime scene with him, tells Yuki he's her friend, moving him deeply. Mao, however, warns Yuki that he can't be more than friends with Hinata, but she refuses to explain why. While wandering alone, Hinata hears a voice in the woods. Curious, she investigates and stumbles into a clearing filled with hundreds of dogs. At that moment, Yuki's diary suddenly changes. Yuno urges him to leave, sensing another owner nearby. Yuki refuses, determined to save Hinata, his first royal friend. His diary shows the location of her corpse and her arm is torn away. Rushing to the scene, Yuki finds Hinata's mutilated body, while Oji and Mao stand frozen in shock. Suddenly, Akise emerges, as he has been shadowing them since they entered the park, and already knows they'll need help before sunset. Without his intervention, he says they would be dead. He teases Yuki about his trembling, but assures him that he is his friend. Suddenly, the pack of dogs charges them. Akise orders everyone to run to the observation building, their only chance at survival. Elsewhere, the truth comes out that the diary owner runs a dog park, spoiling his dogs with gourmet steaks and luxury meals while eating instant ramen himself. He pampers them to sharpen their loyalty, turning them into weapons to execute his plans. With the future diary and his well-trained dogs, he delights in watching his scheme unfold. Inside the observation building, Akise formally introduces himself. He declares his goal of becoming a detective and reveals he already knows Yuki's name, and he has been researching him for days, but this only deepens Yuno's suspicion. Akise explains that after the first psychopath's death, the school bombing, and the Omakata incident, he is convinced Yuki is tied to all of it. Yuki wonders if Akise knows about the diary, but Akise reveals nothing. At first, Yuki distrusts him, but Akise has saved him twice now. Yuno, however, accuses Akise, Mao, and already of being diary owners themselves, pointing to the ferocity of the dogs as proof. Before anyone can argue, the dogs begin forcing their way into the building, throwing the group into panic. Yuki considers using his future diary to track which windows the dogs will break through, but Yuno urges him to sacrifice the others as distractions. Yuki refuses, unwilling to lose more friends, and instead uses his diary to direct Oji, Mao, and Akise on where to defend. They follow his lead, successfully keeping the dogs out, and after hours pass, the animals finally retreat. Oji cheers and immediately confronts Yuki about his phone, noting how he stares at it constantly. Cornered, Yuki admits the phone holds a diary that predicts the future, and Akise is stunned that such a thing exists. Suddenly, Mao grabs Yuki's wrist and presses a knife to his throat. The door creaks open, and Hinata walks in, alive. Yuki stares in disbelief, and she seizes his phone and apologizes, confessing that she has been lying. Hinata reveals herself as the owner of the Breed Future Diary, and her true objective isn't Yuki at all, but it's to capture Akise's future diary. A week before the park incident, Hinata's father came to her house and apologized for everything he had done to them. He tells Hinata that he regrets leaving his family behind and caring more about dogs than about them, but now he is ready to abandon the dogs altogether. He admits that he is the one hurting the other diary owners and declares that he wants to become a god so he can turn back time for his family. Hinata urges him to rebuild their family in the present, but he says it is too late, as he is already being chased by Akise, so he needs her to replace him. Back inside the observatory building, Hinata demands Akise's diary. She reveals that she prepared a fake body to stage her death, knowing Akise would never expect someone to die that day. She also admits to Yuki that he was just bait because Akise suspects him, making Yuki the perfect target. Yuki thought they were friends, but hearing Hinata use him as bait crushes him completely. Akise responds that he is willing to give up his diary, but only if they bet on it. He pulls out a coin and tosses it in the air. After catching it, they must guess which hand it lands in. Akise offers a deal that Hinata will use Yuki's diary to make her guess, and he will use his own. The winner takes the other's diary, and Hinata agrees. For a warm-up, Hinata tosses the coin and switches hands at the last second. Yuki tells Yuno that it is in her right hand, but Akise has already made his choice. Akise checks his diary and announces it is in her left hand, surprising everyone with the accuracy of his prediction. Their diaries all change when Akise changes his guess. But Yuno notices that Akise's diary never changes at all, making her worry it might be the strongest diary of all. With the rules clarified, they begin the real game. Akise tosses the coin, and Hinata makes her guess. Yuki's diary tells Hinata that the coin is in Akise's left hand, but Hinata guesses left outright, assuming it might be a trick. She guesses wrong and Akise immediately demands Yuki's diary. Frustrated, Hinata releases Yuki instead, this time wanting to play for real. As the next round begins, Yuno suddenly tackles Akise, suspecting something is off. She demands to know his owner's number. Akise is confused and refuses to answer. Yuno then declares that Akise was never a diary owner in the first place, as there is no entry in Deus's notes about him having a diary. Akise bursts into laughter, admitting he only pretended to be an owner because he enjoyed their trust, as it amused him. He says all of his correct guesses were pure luck, and Hinata's unstable mindset made it easier for him to gain an advantage. Furious that Akise has manipulated Yuki, Yuno tries to stab him, but Akise evades her and brings her down. He tells Hinata that he knows her father wants him dead, and he also says he is willing to sacrifice himself for Yuki's diary. Yuki, however, feels that Akise won't choose correctly again, as he wouldn't dare use the same trick twice. Hinata then proposes one final round that if Akise wins, he gets Yuki's diary. If not, he is fed to the dogs. Sensing the tension, Yuki asks Hinata to promise that she will come back with them safely if she wins. Moved by his words, she agrees, saying Yuki can leave if Akise wins. Mao grows angry, saying it defeats the point of everything they have done, and she fears Yuki will not stay quiet. Hinata insists that the situation became chaotic because of Mao's reckless actions, and tells her to go home. Mao suddenly hugs Hinata, crying and apologizing. Yuno explains the mechanics of the future diary to Akise, emphasizing the risk of being the one who guesses. She bluntly tells him that she doesn't trust him, but Akise shocks Yuno by saying he is falling in love with Yuki, which makes Yuno emotionally vulnerable. The last round begins. Hinata places the coin in her right hand, just as Yuki's diary predicts. Before Akise guesses, Yuno covers Yuki's ears, and Akise guesses correctly, beating the system. But he lies to Yuki and says he lost. But Yuno suddenly knocks out Yuki. Hinata doesn't understand why Akise lied, and Akise explains that Yuki's diary predicts the future based on what Yuki himself observes. Since Yuki couldn't hear anything, Akise made a lucky guess. He adds that he will always let Yuki believe he lost, whether he wins or not, because it is all luck in the end. Mao refuses to accept their loss and suddenly tries to stab Yuki's diary, but Yuno is faster and stabs Mao instead. As Mao lies dying, Hinata grows furious and gives Yuki her future diary. She desperately tries to stop Mao's bleeding while the others leave the building. Once they are about 100 meters away, a dog howls, and the chase begins. Yuki checks his future diary and it tells him they will be surrounded by dogs and that some of them will die. He remembers Keigo once saying that Deus does not tolerate the 10th owner forfeiting, because the 10th is too dangerous and tries to shift responsibility onto innocents. Yuki decides to confront Hinata directly and stop the dogs. Akise agrees with his idea and even Yuno accepts, though reluctantly, so they split up. Yuki runs with Yuno, who insists on using Oji and Akase as bait so that they can escape. She tells Yuki he doesn't need friends, as they have all betrayed him before. Yuki considers her words and starts trusting her more, but insists they must save Hinata first. Yuno gives him no choice. She pulls out a knife, and Yuki panics, but she uses it to end a dog that leaps in front of him. Meanwhile, Hinata is left all alone and broken, seeing that Mao and her father are gone, and she feels she has no one left and nowhere to go. Suddenly, Yuki and Yuno confront her. Yuki falls, giving Yuno an opening to threaten Hinata. Yuno demands that Hinata call off the dogs, as they are completely surrounded. Oji and Akise arrive, relieved that Yuki did not abandon them. Yuki begs Yuno not to stab Hinata, but Yuno refuses, declaring she cannot let Yuki have friends, as she is terrified that he will grow closer to the others and they'll take him away from her. Seeing Yuno's tears of desperation, Yuki introduces Yuno as his girlfriend to Oji, Akise, and Hinata. It causes Yuno to get flustered, and she lets go of Hinata, who is impressed by how Sigma he is to declare his relationship like that. Yuki then reminds Yuno about the happy ending message she once got from her future diary, and asks her not to destroy it. Yuno blushes, happy to hear it, and Yuki tells her that now she must act like a real girlfriend. He says she has to accept his friends and apologize to Mao after they save her. Yuno blushes harder, impressed by his assertiveness, while Yuki regrets telling a lie he can never undo, but it is already too late. Hinata apologizes to Yuki for tricking him, but he forgives her, saying he still considers her a friend. Hinata then tells her father that she has failed, but from a speaker, her father comforts her, saying she hasn't failed as a person. Finally, Hinata's father admits he lied about wanting to become a god for his family, and that it was only ever for himself, which devastates Hinata to hear. He says he never truly cared about them, but warns Hinata not to become like him, not to become evil, but in that moment, Keigo pops up and shoots Hinata's father. Meanwhile, in a lodge, Minini is preparing her special bombs and equipment for someone. She notices the dress she still wears and remembers how it first came into her possession. Days after receiving her future diary, Minini decided to hunt down the psychopath who owns the murder diary. She doesn't know she was chasing someone far beyond her ability to defeat, because bombs and bullets have no effect on him. Minini's power lies in escaping with the guidance of her diary, but the psychopath always knows the position of his next victim, which renders her ability useless. Minini is cornered by the psychopath who tries to end her. She barely managed to escape by leaping from a window and landing in a pile of garbage. There she encounters Masumi for the first time. Masumi is a detective, and when he sees Minini, he immediately handcuffs her. He knows she is a terrorist, and he insists on taking her to the police station, afraid she could slip away easily. Minini warns him that the psychopath is after them both and claims she has a way out. Masumi's mission is to capture the psychopath, and intrigued by Minini's words, he reluctantly follows her lead. They hide in a design classroom, where Masumi notices that Minini is freezing. She begs him to remove the handcuffs so she can plan, but Masumi refuses, convinced she'll betray him. Minini insists she only wants to use the restroom, so Masumi escorts her there but keeps the cuffs on. After she relieves herself, the flush doesn't work. Frustrated, Minini kicks the water pipe, breaking it and soaking herself. Back in the classroom, Masumi sees her shivering and worries she'll catch a cold. He searches for something warm, and gives her the dress she still treasures today. Though Minini wears it only to avoid getting sick, Masumi finds it cute, and when he compliments her, she blushes. Masumi insists they need a strategy against the psychopath, and Minini admits she has just one flashbang left. He notices how suddenly polite she becomes and steps closer, which makes her panic. She slips, causing him to fall on top of her and accidentally touch her melons. Embarrassed, Masumi blurts out that he's surprised she has such a girly side, which disgusts Minini and reminds her of her bloody childhood. Regaining composure, Masumi says he must take her to the station, but first they need to handle the psychopath. Minini lays out her plan, and since the psychopath's outfit is bulletproof and bomb-proof, their only hope is to trap him in the band classroom, where her flashbang can stun him long enough for them to escape. They put the plan into action. Masumi acts as bait, shooting at the psychopath, who remains unharmed but chases him straight into the trap. Minini slams the door and throws in the flashbang. The psychopath collapses, giving them a window to flee. They escape successfully, but before Masumi can arrest her, Minini shoots him in the chest. He goes down, unconscious, though his bulletproof vest saves him. All the while, Murmur and Deus watch. Murmur initially wants to show Deus this encounter, because it resembles a manga she enjoys. Deus asks her how those stories usually end, and Murmur answers that the characters typically elope after escaping together. But Minini's path surprises them, and after shooting Masumi, Minini mutters to Murmur that she is nothing like those heroines. Shocked, Murmur realizes Minini is somehow aware of her presence. Minini explains that ever since childhood, her life has been soaked in blood, and she has always been running from herself. That is why she has become who she is, someone who will never need love now or ever. Back in her lodge, Minini reflects on the memory of her dress but resolves to live as an adult hardened since her youth. On Sunday, Yuki waits at the bus stop for Akise, who invited him to hang out. Yuki is excited, finally believing he has a friend. Suddenly Yuno appears and drags him onto the bus, insisting he not be late. She reveals that Akise invited her too and proves it with a message. In it, Akise claims Yuki wants to take Yuno on a date at a wedding venue, but is too shy to ask her himself. Realizing Akise tricked him, Yuki feels betrayed. After recently introducing Yuno as his girlfriend to his friends, he already regrets it, especially as Yuno becomes more clingy. When they arrive at the wedding site, Yuno is thrilled, but Yuki is conflicted, as he wants to be honest about his feelings. The wedding guide welcomes them as a young couple ready for marriage, and Yuki notices her name is Naoko Kurusu. At lunch, they enjoy a gourmet meal fit for a prince and princess, though Yuki doesn't even know what meat he is eating. Later, Yuno tries on a wedding dress, but an old prune scolds her, mocking young people for wasting money on clothes. Even so, the elder records Yuno's size. Then Yuki and Yuno pose for wedding photos. Yuki blushes, seeing Yuno in the dress, and when he compliments her, she blushes too. They admire their picture together, but Yuki reminds himself not to get swept away, as he still intends to tell Yuno the truth about his feelings. Yuno kisses his cheek, delighted by the day before Naoko calls them to rehearsal. As they practice, Yuki feels himself slipping into affection for Yuno, but he cannot forget what he saw in her room, which keeps him from truly embracing her. Afterward, Yuno falls asleep, and Naoko confides in Yuki. She says she and her husband were once like him and Yuno, though her husband is now always busy. She mentions that her husband is Keigo, which lingers in Yuki's mind. Yuki tries to dismiss thoughts of Yuno's room, telling himself he's becoming more comfortable with her. When he carries her home, he notices her front door is unlocked. As he fumbles in the dark, Akise appears, explains that her electricity is out. He admits he orchestrated their date so he could investigate her house. In the corpse room, Akise shows Yuki that there is no body, but just a deep dark hole. Before they can study it, Yuno wakes and greets them warmly. Confused, Yuki asks about the corpse he saw earlier, but Yuno insists he has never been in her house before, unsettling him further. Afterward, Akise tells Yuki that Yuno may have overwritten her memories out of necessity, and her fragile mental state could cause her to alter reality for herself. He warns Yuki that Yuno is dangerous without realizing it, and he must think carefully. Meanwhile, at the police station, Keigo informs his detectives that the mastermind behind the dogs was Karyudo, and someone has already shot him. He then declares that their next suspects are Yuki and Yuno. Keigo goes to Minini's lodge, where he begs her to make a deal with him. He promises to give her inside information from the police station to make her life easier. Minini suspects Keigo is playing some sort of alliance game, even though he already has Yuki on his side. Keigo explains that he wants a deal with her because Yuki has no intention of becoming a god. Meanwhile, after Yuki and Akise talk about Yuno, Yuki reflects on Akise's words. He realizes the only thing keeping Yuno from going berserk is him, and that reality makes his life miserable. As Yuki walks home, Masumi and the other detectives confront him for being out late, and they escort Yuki and Yuno to the police station. Masumi informs Keigo that the suspect has arrived. Keigo tells Masumi to bring Yuki first, then notices his future diary has reached a dead end. Yuki senses danger because the detectives stare at him and Yuno, but Yuno notices his unease and tries to comfort him, promising she will stay by his side no matter what. But then Yuno's expression hardens, and she begins searching for something to protect Yuki with, knowing they are at a disadvantage if things go wrong. Yuki realizes Yuno is on the verge of snapping and quickly calms her down. Yuno wants to hurt someone, but Yuki reassures her and stops her. Masumi tells Yuki that Keigo is waiting, but before he goes, Yuki tells Yuno to be a good girl, and those words instantly settle her nerves. Yuki enters the interrogation room and sees Keigo cleaning his gun. Keigo intimidates Yuki and informs him that the 10th diary owner has been shot, and that Yuki and Yuno are the prime suspects. Yuki protests, insisting that's impossible. Keigo replies that this means his source is lying, and thanks Yuki for confirming it. Abruptly, he ends the interrogation, leaving Yuki uneasy, sensing something more is coming. Suddenly, Keigo loads a bullet into his gun and asks Yuki to play Russian roulette. At the same time, Yuno sees in her future diary that Keigo is their enemy, and she snaps. She follows a detective into the restroom, carrying a fire extinguisher, then knocks out both detectives and steals their gun. Back in the interrogation room, Keigo pulls the trigger, but the chamber is empty. He tells Yuki to relax because they both have future diaries. He explains that his interrogation diary is useless when there is no active case, unlike Yuki's diary, which constantly gives him updates. Keigo theorizes that if shooting Yuki would create a case, his diary would have already informed him, and the fact that it hasn't makes him curious. He says he can't shoot Yuki, because Yuki is not officially a suspect, but if he did, he would go to prison. He tells Yuki they are now in the last chamber, and the bullet is for him. He apologizes, saying he has decided to become a god, but just as Keigo is about to pull the trigger, Yuno bursts into the room and shoots him. Keigo collapses to the floor as the gunshot echoes through the police station. Yuno tries to shoot another detective, but is stopped by Yuki. He begs her to return to normal, and she does, but she asks him to go home with her. Keigo survives, impressed that Yuno aimed for his head, but she only grazed his ear. The other detectives rush to treat him, and he orders the station to capture Yuki and Yuno for committing a crime. Keigo checks his diary and sees that it no longer hits a dead end, as a new case has begun, and getting shot by Yuno was part of his plan. Deep down, Keigo aims to become God, and to do that he needs to stop Yuno by using Yuki, since Yuki is the only one who can restrain her. Yuki and Yuno take a detective hostage and attempt to escape. They head to the rooftop but are intercepted by a squad of detectives. One fires a warning shot, startling Yuki, and in his panic, he accidentally shoots a detective. That gives Keigo the case he needs to frame Yuki and Yuno for the 10th owner's murder. As they climb the stairs to the roof, their diaries warn them they will be shot by Keigo and die. At the rooftop, Yuki apologizes to Yuno for failing to stop her. The detectives demand their surrender, but Yuno kisses Yuki instead. They both cry, and then they leap off the building. The detectives rush over, only to discover that Yuki and Yuno survived the fall and escaped. But from that moment, they become fugitives. The next day, Yuki and Yuno dominate the headlines as wanted criminals. Despite police checkpoints and helicopters, they remain hidden. They take refuge in a hospital storage room, and Yuki complains about being hungry. Yuno tells him to endure it, as leaving the hospital means death, since their diaries warn they will be shot by Keigo in front of a convenience store. Then Yuno awkwardly relieves herself near Yuki, blushing with embarrassment because he can hear her. Then Yuki doodles a picture of donuts, and tells Yuno that his father used to make them, but when Yuno asks about his parents' divorce, Yuki refuses to talk about it. Suddenly he smells donuts. Yuno panics, thinking it is her, but it turns out to be Nooko, bringing donuts to the hospital. Yuki and Yuno are confused by Nooko's presence, but hunger drives them to follow her. Then, a bomb explodes in front of them, and their diaries shift. Minini appears and takes Yuki hostage, revealing herself to Yuno. She declares she is bored and wants them gone. But suddenly, Yuki presses one of Minini's buttons, causing another explosion on the opposite side of the floor. Minini and Yuki are trapped, but Yuno throws them a ladder. Minini warns Yuki not to trust Yuno, claiming she will drop the ladder, but Yuki refuses to believe her. Then Keigo calls Minini, threatening to shoot her if she betrays him. Frustrated by everyone shouting at her, Minini yells back at Keigo and hangs up. She helps Yuki across and sees that her diary now hits a dead end. Minini reveals that Keigo is betraying them and that he has been begging her for help. She takes Yuki and Yuno to Keigo's son's hospital room to reveal why Keigo betrayed them. She explains that Keigo wants to become a god to save his son, who has only 3 months left to live. She admits her diary now hits a dead end, just like theirs, but Minini has had enough. Her diary shows that Keigo will shoot her, and she tells Yuki and Yuno they must form an alliance, and the only way to survive is to hold Keigo's wife and son hostage to alter the future. Yuki and Yuno have no choice, seeing that the police have surrounded the hospital, and Minini is their only way out. Special forces are deployed to the hospital, and Masumi tells Keigo that the special forces are ready and awaiting his command. He also reminds Keigo that there are still patients inside, along with his son, but Keigo insists on putting the forces in position. Inside the hospital, Minini tells Nei Oko to relax, promising not to hurt her. She insists she holds the upper hand against Keigo because she intends to change their dead end. While Yuno distrusts Minini, she says she is happy as long as Yuki lives, and Yuki is touched by her words, knowing how she began as his stalker. But now she is wholly devoted to him, which he finds unexpectedly cute. She orders Yuki to scout the hospital during the negotiation while Yuno watches the hostages and stays in contact with him. Yuki is shocked to be given the assignment. Minini hands him a bomb and teaches him how to use it, saying he needs to scout like a man. Yuno then gives Yuki her bullets, and he initially refuses, worried that she might need them, but she insists he take them. Minini initiates the operation, and before Yuki parts ways with Yuno, he tells her that if they survive, he wants to take her to a special place. Minini contacts Keigo and lays out her demands that he must clap himself and provide a getaway vehicle, or she will end the hostages. But Keigo turns the tables, claiming he is the one making demands. He tells Minini that she and the others are boxed in, unable to escape, and must surrender or die. He coldly declares that he does not care if his son dies, as his son is dying anyway, and his only goal is to become a god and save himself. The negotiation collapses, placing Yuki in danger. Yuno calls Yuki and warns him to hide because the special forces are advancing, and suddenly he is cornered and subdued. Elsewhere, Keigo prepares to storm the hospital and orders Masumi back to the station to reflect on his objective. Yuki resists, hearing Keigo's footsteps drawing closer, knowing Keigo is his dead end. Keigo opens fire, but Yuno leaps in to save Yuki. She shoots all the special forces, capturing him, leaving Keigo alone. Quickly, Yuno picks up the bomb just as Keigo seizes Yuki as a hostage. Meanwhile, Minini activates the bomb's timer as a final resort and makes her escape. But when she leaps from a window, she drops and runs into Masumi. Back inside, Yuno threatens Keigo, demanding Yuki's release or she will pull the pin. Keigo lets Yuki go, realizing Yuno might actually blow them all up. Yuki tries to stop Yuno, but Yuno doesn't care about her life anymore, and tells Yuki that he is her reason to live. She wants to marry him one day, but if she cannot, she will die for him. Suddenly, Yuno pulls the pin and begins choking Keigo, intent on dying with him so that Yuki can survive. Just before the bomb detonates, Yuki tells her he wants to see the stars with her. Meanwhile, Masumi restrains Minini again, but a sudden flash distracts him. She pulls him with her and explains that this was the true distraction, and thanks to Masumi, she now has a plan to escape her dead end. Meanwhile, the grenade Yuki held turns out to be a flashbang, which causes Yuki, Yuno, and Keigo to fall unconscious. But when her bomb explodes, the three fall into the underground level. Yuki wakes and sees Yuno unconscious but alive. As he tries to reach her, Keigo intercepts him, grabbing his hair and beating him like a rag doll. Keigo intends to end them both before the police arrive. But suddenly, Yuki seizes a gun and aims, but Keigo grabs Yuno as a shield, threatening to finish her unless Yuki drops the weapon. Yuno regains consciousness, and Keigo mocks Yuki, saying his poor aim could cause him to hit her instead. Yuki checks his diary and sees it predicts Yuno dying from his bullet. Yuno checks hers and sees her own dead end approaching. Trapped, Yuno urges Yuki to shoot through her. She says she has had the best time of her life with him and does not mind dying. As she struggles, she drops their wedding photo from her pocket. Yuki picks it up, tears streaming, and begs her not to give up as he wants her to live happily. He confesses his feelings, and his future diary changes. Believing in himself because of Yuno, Yuki fires and hits Keigo in the gut. Keigo clutches his wound but remains desperate to ascend as a god. He tries to attack Yuno, but Minini and Masumi intervene to save her. Masumi demands Keigo's surrender after Minini told him the truth about his crimes against the 10th diary holder. Keigo denies it, claiming they have no proof, but Minini plays her recording of his desperate deal with her. A terrorist, Masumi declares that Keigo is no longer a detective but a criminal, and in that moment, his future collapses, showing him his dead end. Keigo surrenders, drops his weapon, and asks Minini to take care of his son, to which she promises that she will. He then breaks his future diary, and before being erased, he apologizes to Yuki and tells him to live. Days later, the news reports on Keigo's case without mentioning Yuki, Yuno, or Minini, and Masumi ensures everything is handled. Yuno and Yuki endure multiple interrogations, but Keigo's files clear away any suspicions. Then, Yuki keeps his promise to take Yuno to a special place. He meets her on the street, thrilled to see her smile. As they walk to the train station, Yuno anticipates a kiss, but Yuki senses it and kisses her. She teases him, saying he is improving at his tongue technique. At the station, Yuki tries to call his father to borrow a telescope, as they are heading to a hill to see the stars, but his father does not answer, leaving him worried. Yuno snatches his diary and runs ahead so they do not miss the train. While waiting, Yuki goes to the restroom and receives a message from Akise, who warns him that the police found something unusual about Yuno, and urges Yuki to be careful around her. But Yuki never sees the message, as Yuno takes his phone and deletes it. When Yuki returns, he notices a notification, but Yuno dismisses it as spam. They board the train together, and Yuki asks about her large bag. Yuno explains that it contains lingerie, protection, and other freaky essentials. But what Yuki does not know is that it also holds drugs and the dismembered remains of a human body. Meanwhile, Akise goes to Yuki's house and finds that he isn't home. Suddenly, Masumi pops up and with Akise, since they haven't seen each other in a long time. In the other world, while Murmur eats her mochi, Deos notices that miracles have already happened 3 times. He knows that Kise has the potential to win the game, but someone has interfered with its flow. Deos accuses Murmur of tampering with the game and even steps on her. Murmur survives and admits that she altered the game because she wants it to be fun and fast. She reveals that Kise doesn't know his son's impending death is actually much later, and that his decision to fight Yuki is also supposed to happen later. But because the game is moving too slowly, Murmur decides to interfere. She tells Deos they must choose the next god quickly, because time is running out. She proposes a bet, and Murmur wagers on Yuno, while Deos remains firm in his choice of Yuki, which has never changed since the beginning. At school, Akise gives Hinata and Mao a holiday ticket, hoping to bring them closer together. Days later, Hinata and Mao relax in a hotel bathtub, enjoying their time thanks to Akise's kindness. Hinata notices the water level rising, and suddenly a flash bursts from beneath the water. She confronts Mao, who has been secretly taking degenerate pictures of her plots, which starts an argument. All the while, Akise listens in while enjoying his own hot tub. Then, Hinata and Mao join Akise and Oji for dinner at an all-you-can-eat crab buffet. Hinata and Mao dislike Oji's presence and prefer Yuki instead. Akise and Oji scribble in their diaries, imitating Yuki's habit, and Hinata mocks them for copying him. Thinking of Yuki, she wonders where he is. Oji casually says Yuki is probably dead, which enrages her, and she slams the table in frustration. Oji and Mao are stunned, and Mao notices that Hinata calls Yuki by his first name. At midnight, while the group sleep, Keigo stays awake, worried about Yuki. The trip is part of a plan he and Masumi arranged earlier. Before the vacation, they meet at the police station, where Masumi checks Keigo's locker and finds a diary. Reading it with Akise, they discover Keigo has documented all 12 diary owners and their backgrounds. Masumi insists they must find Yuki and Yuno, because the 3 remaining unidentified diary holders are targeting them. When Akise receives no replies from Yuki, his concern deepens. Masumi explains that a bus driver last saw Yuki and Yuno heading toward the mountains, but Akise knows and tells Masumi that Yuno never goes anywhere unless she controls the situation, and that she might be using both the mountains and the witness as misdirection. The next day, Akise and the others take a gondola into the mountains and meet Masumi. Akise introduces him to Hinata, Mao, and Oji as the sponsor of their trip. When he reveals that Masumi is a policeman, the group is shocked, confirming that Akise has a hidden agenda. Masumi explains that Yuki and Yuno may be in the same town, which excites Hinata. He tells them he needs their help to find Yuki, because Yuno is holding him, and if the police intervene, she will flee with him. Masumi adds that in the area where they were last seen, there are many small towns, each filled with abandoned buildings due to an economic collapse. Hinata points out that Yuki and Yuno could easily be hiding in one of those buildings. The group begins searching, and know that it's impossible to search every building. Akise suggests splitting up. He pairs with Oji, while Hinata goes with Mao. In one abandoned building, Akise and Oji take a break. Oji goes to relieve himself and suddenly screams, alarming Akise. Oji complains about the lack of a working elevator and running water, and Akise has a realization. He calls Hinata and explains that Yuki and Yuno must be hiding in a building with water and electricity, which narrows their options. He credits Oji for the idea, and Oji accepts the praise. Then Hinata, Mao, Akise, and Oji test elevators and buildings and find a trap hidden inside. Oji panics, wanting to quit because of the deadly traps, but Akise insists on continuing. Hinata becomes worried she may never find Yuki, but Mao comforts her. Akise calls Masumi to report and asks if any of the buildings once belonged to Yuno's family. Masumi checks the records, and suddenly Akise's elevator shuts down, but he knows that Yuno is stalling them. Meanwhile, Hinata receives a message from Yuki, claiming Yuno has trapped him in the Grand Hotel basement and is trying to hurt him. Panicked, she rushes there without telling Akise. Mao later tells Akise about the message, and immediately, Akise grows suspicious, knowing that Yuki couldn't have sent it. Since Yuno's diary reveals everything about him, she would have noticed, so Yuno must have written it. Mao then shows another message claiming Hinata found Yuki in the basement, and Akise doubts it, but Oji insists they hurry. They head into the hotel basement, where Akise opens a door and finds Yuki sitting alone. He tells Oji to hold the door while he and Mao approach, but when Akise touches Yuki, it turns out to be a doll. Oji and his dumb head leave the door, and the door slams shut, trapping them. Akise realizes Hinata must be tied up elsewhere, and the message Mao received was fake, sent by Yuno to lure them in. Now Akise, Mao, and Oki are trapped as gas begins to leak into the room, threatening their lives. Before all of this happened, Yuki and Yuno are planning to see the stars together. During the bus ride, Yuki tries to stop the vehicle, but Yuno wakes up and stops him, saying that everything is already arranged. They arrive in a small town and rest in the streets, and Yuki says the place is perfect for stargazing, high enough to see the sky clearly. Yuno goes to get him a drink, but secretly drugs it. The next thing he knows, Yuki sits bound while Yuno calmly watches him, flanked by two skulls placed on either side. In the basement, Oji and Mao panic as gas begins to flood the room, while Akise remains calm, knowing that it will take a few minutes before the room fills completely, and is more concerned with how serious Yuno is about her actions. He fixes his gaze on the camera and tells Oji it's far too soon for last words, because he has already found an escape route. Meanwhile, Yuno prepares Yuki's favorite beef stew. Yuki is tied up and weak, unable to feed himself, so Yuno spoon feeds him. She forces his mouth open even when he resists. Hinata protests, telling Yuno that Yuki doesn't want the food, and urging her to see how twisted her actions are. But Yuno refuses to listen. To her, Yuki is happy, and together they can live forever, free from the police or any diary owners who might pursue them. Like a total freak, Yuno tells Yuki she is going to pull down his pants so he can relieve himself. Hinata can't stand the absurdity, but just as Yuno reaches for Yuki's pants, Akise interrupts her through the camera. Akise asks about the two skulls, immediately seizing Yuno's attention. He explains that he searched her house while she was away and found human remains buried in a deep pit. The remains included decapitated skulls with fresh cut marks, and he suspected Yuno might keep them nearby. Yuno flares with anger knowing that Akise dared disturb her parents. Yet Akise assures her he reburied them so she would not direct her hatred at him. Oji and Mao feel uneasy about where this conversation is headed, but Akise presses forward, demanding the truth. He reveals there is something odd about the remains after he found 3 bodies with 2 missing skulls and 1 fully intact. That third body raises a question, as he doesn't know the final victim. Akise begins to negotiate. He threatens to send an email to the police, exposing Yuno's crimes, and if she does not release them, he will act. The room falls into silence. Mao and Oji start to panic. Suddenly, Yuno bursts into hysterical laughter at Akise's attempt at blackmail. She tells Yuki that Akise is pretending to play the hero, and in that moment, Akise understands that Yuno's mind is unstable. He tells Oji and Mao that Yuno has erased them from her memory to avoid feeling cornered. Hinata tries to rouse Yuki, but he remains unconscious. Then Yuno switches off the camera, shocking Akise, who now has run out of options. Akise scrambles to think while Oji and Mao fall deeper into despair. Oji declares he will write his will in his diary, thanking his parents and naming Yuno as the cutlery. He posts it to his blog, and to his shock he suddenly receives a message that his rank has increased. The message tells him he now holds the power of an apprentice diary, like a future diary, and his diary shows him escaping through the ventilation shaft with Akise's guidance. Oji follows the prediction, and Akise instructs him to confront Yuno in the security room. While Oji makes his way through the building, Yuno notices her and Yuki's future diaries changing. Suddenly, Oji bursts into the room and confronts her, declaring himself the ultimate weapon. But Yuno doesn't even recognize him, as she has erased him from her memory. His loud entrance jolts Yuki awake, and he sees Oji and Hinata near him, and recalls being drugged by Yuno. When he first woke earlier, he tried to escape, but she stopped him. Now she holds him hostage, determined to live with him, until the date of her so-called happy ending. Oji tells Yuno that he is now a future diary owner, and if he follows its predictions, he will succeed in freeing Yuki. Yuno smiles and agrees, so she hands him the basement key, and tells him he can also take the key to Yuki's handcuffs. Oji does not realize that Yuno can manipulate the future, and his diary only ever shows success. He rushes to the basement and unlocks the door, calling to Akise that it's open. But as he turns away, Yuno suddenly fires a crossbow. The bolt strikes him and Yuno mocks him, saying that his diary is useless, showing only victories and ignoring looming failures. But then her diary shifts again, and she looks up to see Yuki breaking free. He snatches the crossbow and Will Smith her across the face, snapping her from her delusion. Yuki tells her that her diary was flawed, as Hinata had secretly kicked him the key to his handcuffs without her knowing, allowing him to escape. He frees Hinata, and immediately, his diary shifts again. He reads that 3 diary owners are closing in on him, and fear grips him. Yuki and Hinata help Oji out of the building and reunite with Akusei and Mao in the stairwell. Relief floods Yuki as he sees his friends again, but Yuno appears, confronting them. She begs Yuki not to abandon her, saying that she will do anything for him. She warns him that enemies are coming and pleads with him to stay, but Yuki answers her coldly to choke on a glizzy. He walks away with his friends, leaving Yuno behind, while she watches them go, feeling helpless. Yuki returns home with his friends and Masumi. He apologizes to Uji for getting him injured, and the group drives down the highway together. Akaise warns Yuki that Yuno will surely come after him again. Then, as they ride, a red sports car speeds past them. Yuki doesn't know it, but inside that car are the 3 diary owners hunting him, and they have already recognized their target. Meanwhile, Yuno returns to her house. Yet her thoughts remain fixed on Yuki, and on the 3 new enemies now setting their sights on him. At midnight, Yuki receives a message from Diaz, who is furious that one diary owner has the power to create other diary owners. He announces that he is holding a meeting for those who receive the message, where he intends to vote on whether a subsidiary owner can be considered a god or not. Yuki realizes that Oji and the 3 owners pursuing him are fake, because the 8th owner is actually a server that produces more future diary users. The next day, Yuki and his friends meet in the school's storage room. Yuki borrows Oyuji's future diary, and Oji warns him that if the diary is destroyed, he will die. Suddenly, Yuki hurls Oyuji's diary to the floor and tears it apart. Oji collapses dramatically, pretending he is dying, but nothing happens. Yuki is experimenting, following Akisei's explanation about the 8th owner. Akisei clarifies how the 8th can create more owners, but in reality, he functions only as a server that hosts the rental blog Oji relies on. Suddenly, Yuki notices that his own diary has changed. It warns that an intruder will come for him in 3 days, and the intruder is most likely the 8th owner. Yuki tells his friends and admits he is worried, especially now that Yuno no longer supports him. He regrets letting her go, but insists it was his choice. But his friends remain willing to help, and Akisei suggests they need Masumi's support to scout Yuki's house, and they decide to hide Yuki at Oji's place. Hinata tells Yuki that if he wants their help, he must truly accept it. Yuki happily agrees, not even checking his diary, because it reflects his intention. At midnight, Akisei calls Yuki to inform him that Masumi is watching over his house for the next 3 days, and Yuki has a radio to use if anything happens. Akisei explains that he is preparing Oji's house to defend against the 3 owners if they attack, but admits he is more worried about Yuno. He reminds Yuki that Yuno still has her diary, which could make her strike at any time. Yuki feels unsettled. She is now his enemy. Suddenly, a noise echoes from the kitchen. Yuno investigates and finds his mom, Ria, who has just returned home. Ria and Yuki sit down for dinner, and Yuki asks if she is curious about what happened with Reisuke. Ria replies that she is not good at talking, and she leaves it up to Yuki to decide whether to share or not. Still, she makes him promise that he will tell her someday. Yuki notices that Ria has prepared too much potato salad, but becomes uneasy when she admits she did not cook it. She reveals that Yuno had stopped by earlier, made dinner for them, and left when Ria asked her to join. 3 days later, Yuki and his friends head to Oji's house. On the way, Akisei outlines his plan that Yuki will hide inside while the police surround the property to protect him. Mao points out that the police may struggle to fight the 3 owners, which Akisei admits is a valid concern. Then, Hinata marvels at the size of Oji's house, which Akisei explains is intentional, as they will use the large space to lure the 3 owners in, then cut off the network, disabling their phones and diaries. By severing their connection to the 8th owner, they will gain the upper hand. A few hours later, Yuki receives the remote control that cuts the network. Just then, someone cuts the power and his diary changes, warning him that the enemy is nearby. When he presses the switch, the remote control doesn't work due to the power loss. Yuki panics, wondering how they knew the plan. But suddenly, Yuno reveals herself downstairs, clutching a knife. She exclaims with delight that she has found Yuki and insists she is there to protect him. Yuki recoils, convinced she is the traitor, as he suspects she wants to kidnap him again. But Akisei tells her to come upstairs instead, saying that she could protect Yuki as an ally rather than an enemy, while he and Oji go to manually cut the network. Oji and Akisei head for the network antenna, and Yuki sees in his diary that they succeed within 30 minutes. When Yuno reaches the balcony, Yuki ties her up, as he's too afraid to trust her. Suddenly, a loud crash erupts downstairs. Masumi is fighting the owners, Marco and Ai. They spot Yuki above and continue pummeling Masumi. Marco warns Yuki to stand still, boasting that his future diary predicts his opponent's next move in battle. Meanwhile, another owner, Taro, reports to their Fey head leader, Kamado, that Marco and Ai are inside, and that he will continue scouting. Yuki and the girls flee upstairs after Marco and Ai brutally beat Masumi. Ai tells Marco not to worry, because she can track Yuki easily with her flirting diary, which predicts people she wants to clap. Marco and Ai charge upstairs. Hinata and Mao try to stop them, but Ai injures both with her knives. Yuki and Yuno scramble into the attic, leaving Hinata and Mao behind. Yuki refuses to untie Yuno, still terrified she will betray him. Suddenly, Marco and Ai break in, cornering them, until Yuki receives a call from Akazi confirming the network is down, and Yuki feels safer knowing Marco and Ai cannot rely on their diaries. Marco and Ai, unfazed, go for a smoke break, then return to shock Yuki by revealing that they have a real future diary. They both introduce themselves as the 7th owners, the exchange diary couple. Yuno begs Yuki to untie her, swearing she truly loves him, and Yuki hesitates, but with Marco and Ai threatening to slice him, he has no choice. Marco and Ai passionately kiss in front of Yuki and Yuno, taunting them about the power of love. They explain that their diaries share information about each other, making them the perfect couple, and their goal is to prove which of them loves the other more. Suddenly, Ai hurls a knife at Yuki, but Yuno shields him, which Yuki praises. Ai keeps throwing until she runs out, while Yuno intercepts the blades driven by Yuki's praise. Marco and Ai panic and retreat, seeing that their plan has failed. Then, Yuki notices Hinata and Mao are missing. Not knowing that Marco and Ai dragged them outside before Taro set the house ablaze. Marco and Ai tend to their wounds before returning to finish the fight. Yuki and Yuno try to follow, but Yuki still resists depending on her. Then, Yuno confronts him, insisting that she doesn't mind being used by him, as long as he acts like her boyfriend again. Then, Yuki and Ai clash their knives against each other. But as Yuno is about to win, Marco takes the hit. All the while Yuki freezes, staring at his diary, which warns that Yuno will be injured. The sprinkler system activates, putting out the fire, and Yuki finds Yuno on the floor, unconscious. Marco mocks him for being a limp-willy loser for not protecting his woman, declaring that their love is pathetic. Yuki shouts back that he was just scared, which enrages Marco enough to fling Yuki down the stairs. Days later, Yuki, Yuno, Hinata and Mao recover in the hospital. Akise tells Yuki that Yuno still hasn't woken up and reveals that they lost the battle, as both Yuki's and Yuno's diaries were stolen. Yet despite the defeat, Yuki and his friends remain alive. Suddenly, a nurse enters the room and sits beside Yuki, asking about the attackers. At first, Yuki doesn't know who she is, but then she reveals herself as Minini, disguised as a nurse, seeking revenge. Somewhere in Sakurami City, Yuki's father, Kuro, receives news that his son is injured and being treated in the hospital. He rushes there, remembering the last time he met Yuki. Meanwhile, inside the hospital, Yuki is doing push-ups while Minini sits on his back. Masumi and Akise watch and decide that Yuki is safe with Minini, since she doesn't pose any danger to him. Yuki grows exhausted from the push-ups, frustrated that he doesn't even know what he's training for. Minini tells him she's his coach now, and that he needs to prepare for a fight against the 7th owner. Suddenly, Kuro walks in and sees his son being used as a bench for a hot nurse. He grows jealous that Yuki has goaded Riz, and awkwardly asks Minini to sit on his back too. Minini doesn't recognize him as Yuki's father, but plays along anyway, while Kuro struggles to do even one push-up, which gets him stepped on. Yuki is shocked to see his father visiting him in the hospital, and he explains that he's doing rehab work with Minini, which explains the push-ups. Embarrassed by how clingy Kuro acts with Minini, Yuki is also relieved Ria isn't around to see it. He wonders what would happen if his parents never divorced, even daydreaming about stargazing with them if they got back together, but he fears it's too late. Kuro acts overly flirty with Minini. Still craving the rehab play, Minini tells him they should settle it with a game. He and Yuki will compete for her attention, and the loser will face a penalty. Kuro agrees and asks Yuki what wish he wants granted if he loses. Yuki tells him he wishes for him and Mom to remarry and watch the stars together, and Kuro accepts the deal if Yuki wins. Meanwhile, Akise and Masumi check Yuno's room, and discover she's gone to stalk Yuki, as he plays along with Kuro and Minini. Akise's hunch about the 7th not exploiting Yuki and Yuno's phones proves correct, since both are still safe. Back in the game, Minini acts as referee, and the first contest is chin-ups. Yuki manages 2.5, while Kuro does none. Yet Minini declares Kuro the winner, joking he did them too fast to see, even though he clearly didn't. Next comes grip strength. Yuki, no longer fooled, gets serious and sets a new record. Kuro brags he used to be called Mr. Destructive, and cheats by spinning a dial to display fake numbers. Minini again calls Kuro the winner, leaving Yuki frustrated, but Minini reminds Yuki to relax and enjoy the rare time with his father. Despite losing each match, Yuki thinks about her words and chooses to focus on bonding with Kuro. Outside, Yuno keeps spying. Seeing Kuro, she feels relieved that he isn't some dangerous stranger but Yuki's real father. all while holding a knife protectively. The last match is a race up a hill. Minini insists the winner takes the whole game. Before they begin, Kuro admits that the reason he split from Rhea is that his recklessness with money left him millions in debt. Minini starts the race, and Yuki trails behind Kuro, guilty that he never knew about his parents' struggles. Minini tells him his real weakness is giving up once he recognizes his own flaws. She urges him to keep going because miracles come to those who don't quit. Even though she's a terrorist, Yuki is moved by her words. Determined, he keeps climbing the hill, driven only by the wish he wants Kuro to hear. When Yuki reaches the top, he finds a letter from his father with a snack beside it. He reads that Kuro promises to consider reconciling with Rhea, and reassures Yuki not to worry about the debt, since he has a way to pay it back. Kuro writes that he must return home for unfinished business. Later, Minini meets with Masumi, who shares a plan. He suggests Yuki should hear fake news about Minini battling the 7th. Since the 7th reads Yuki's diary, he won't destroy it if he thinks there's more information to extract. Minini admits it's clever, but only agrees if she gets paid. Masumi says the plan is actually Akise's. Minini shrugs, saying she doesn't care who thought of it, but she's done working for the dead. And this time it's for the living. Outside, Yuno spies on Yuki eating the snack and feels happy for him. But then Yuki spots Kuro riding a cab back to the hospital, making Yuno suspicious enough to follow. At the hospital, she is shocked when Kuro sneaks around looking for Yuki's future diary, and catches him on a phone call from a person who promises to pay his debts if he destroys his phone. A few days later, Masumi arrives at Kamado's foster home with a search warrant. Kamado doesn't resist and even cheerfully welcomes them. Hours afterward, Yuki and Kuro watch the news together, and Yuki is surprised to learn that Masumi discovered a suspect linked to their case inside Kamado's house, which seems like good news. Suddenly, Yuno storms into Yuki's room with a knife. She nearly stabs Kuro, but Yuki stops her, claiming she's just peeling apples. While Kuro is distracted, Yuno secretly tells Yuki her theory that Kuro could be connected to the 11th owner, and his debt plan might involve destroying Yuki's diary, ending him in the process. She begs him to trust her, insisting she doesn't want him to die, but Yuki refuses to believe her, convinced his father would never betray him. Then Yuno's phone rings. She steps out to answer, and it's the 7th owner. He orders her to tell Masumi to meet at Sakurami Tower, or else they'll shatter her diary. When she returns, she claims that the 7th wants Kuro, and she purposefully mentions that Yuki's phone is with the 7th. Hearing that, Kuro stresses out about how to get his hands on Yuki's phone, not realizing Yuno is deceiving him. Meanwhile, in Marco's apartment, Ai bursts into tears after reading her diary, which claims Marco has a secret girlfriend. She thinks she's just a fling. But as she reads further, her sadness turns into joy when she learns Marco plans to marry her. She hugs him, and he promises to buy her a real ring. Later, Yuki, Yuno, and Kuro head to Sakurami Tower. Yuki worries Yuno might manipulate his father, but Kuro diffuses the tension with sarcastic jokes. They confront Marco and Ai inside a wedding chapel, and Kuro bravely steps forward, only to be punched hard in the gut by Marco. He then puts their diaries on a table, and challenges them to get them and his father back from him. But Yuno sees that they're fake. Enraged, Yuki attacks Marco but is easily overpowered and beaten. Meanwhile, Yuno searches for the future diary and spots it hidden in Ai's bouquet. Yuki collapses to the floor but suddenly watches as Kuro approaches the diary. Yuki realizes what's happening and regrets not trusting Yuno as Kuro suddenly smashes it. Yuki shuts his eyes, certain he's about to die in his father's hands, but sees that he's still alive. Yuno moves quickly to get the banquet and pulls out Yuki's real diary, proving she was right all along about Kuro, which fills him with shame. Kuro tries to coax Yuki into handing over the diary, promising he will buy him a new one, but Yuki realizes that his father doesn't know that they are diaries. Yuki refuses, remembering the fake, and suddenly, the entire tower trembles as Taro has detonated explosives, giving Marco time to escape. The floor under Yuki gives way. As he falls, both Yuno and Kuro reach out to save him, but Yuki freezes, not knowing which hand to trust. Years ago, Ai and her parents went to the Sakurami Tower, where they abandoned her. For hours, Ai waits for her parents to come back, but they never do. Ai is all alone and crying in the Sakurami Tower, which makes it her special place. Suddenly, Ai meets Marco for the first time, who tries to comfort Ai, who is alone and crying, and brings her to the foster home. At school, Ai is scared and keeps following Marco everywhere, which annoys him. Marco tells her to get to know her classmates, but Ai refuses because she is scared. Seeing Ai worried and afraid, Marco decides to accompany her. Marco and Ai grow closer during school, even though they never expected it. Then they decide to visit the Sakurami Tower, where Ai writes her first diary about Marco fighting. He tells her to write something else, about herself or the world, but Ai insists on writing about him because he is the one who saves her. Marco and Ai visit the wedding chapel, where Ai tells Marco she wants to get married there in the future. Ai tells Marco that she remembers what he says to her about making yesterday your worst day, so your best day can still come. At school, Ai is hated by her classmates for being annoying, and for being the unluckiest person in the world for not having parents. One day, when Ai is about to go home, she finds a secret letter in her locker. telling her to go to the factory to meet Marco. Ai goes to the factory and tells Marco she is there. Suddenly, she is cornered by her classmates. They want to hurt her because she has no parents, and no one is there to protect her. Meanwhile, Marco gets her message and tries to call her, but Ai doesn't respond, which makes him worried. Marco goes to the old factory and sees that Ai is being toyed by her classmates. He fights them all by himself, dirtied his hands with blood, and accidentally takes one of their life. Ai and Marco go to the Sakurami Tower, where Marco panics about taking a life. He apologizes to Ai because he should have been there for her, so the incident wouldn't have happened. Marco tries to stab his own throat with the knife he uses, but Ai saves him and hugs him. Ai and Marco cry together, and Ai tells Marco that if someone hurts him, she will protect him, and if he's in pain, she will cry, because she doesn't want him to go. Marco feels a deep connection with Ai and promises that he will never leave her, which he solidifies with a kiss. Back in the present, Yuki is saved by Yuno, and Kuro is taken hostage by Marco. Yuki can't believe that his father betrays him, but Yuno tells Yuki that Marco takes Kuro because they have unfinished business, and she suspects they have an escape plan. Yuki and Yuno confront them, and Yuno says they must end Marco and Ai, and take their parachutes, which are part of the escape plan. Yuki says they are injured and can't fight Marco and Ai, but Yuno reminds him that the last time they faced Marco and Ai, Yuki was a wimp, and it was a 2-on-1. She tells him that he now has to fight, using his weakness to turn things around. Meanwhile, at Kamado's foster home, Masumi is informed about the Sakurami bombing, and learns that Yuki, Yuno, and Kuro are there, having left a letter in their hospital room. Masumi tells his detective to call Yuki's mother immediately, and worries that Kamado is a decoy because he can't find the server. Back at Sakurami Tower, Ai and Marco prepare to escape. Ai tells Marco that Yuno and Yuki are coming for them, and reminds him not to fool around this time. Marco promises to defeat them with the power of their love, claiming Yuki and Yuno's fake love can't match their true bond. Before the fight, Ai tells Marco she's happy her dream of getting married there has come true. But Marco reminds her that it is their dream, and he promises they will be together forever. Marco and Ai get out of the elevator and see that Yuno is waiting alone, ready for battle. Marco asks where the coward is hiding, and Yuki tells Marco that he is hiding because he's weak and scared, so Marco should face Yuno instead. Marco is disappointed in Yuki for learning nothing, so Marco fights Yuno, with Ai assisting him using her future diary. Marco manages to take Yuno's knife and injure her. Yuno falls and Marco grabs her future diary. Seeing that Yuki is hiding in the broadcaster's room, Marco rushes there but finds it empty. Realizing that Yuki has fooled him, Marco reads his diary, which tells him Ai's diary will be destroyed by Yuki's dart, finishing her. Marco hurries to warn Ai, and sees Yuki revealing himself. Yuki throws his darts at Ai's diary, but with Marco's warning, she dodges them. But in that moment, there is an opening, and Yuno slashes her throat and injures her. Yuki scolds Yuno for going for the throat, but suddenly Kuro wakes up and steals one parachute. Yuki yells at Kuro to come back, but the building collapses on him. Yuki and Yuno survive but are trapped under the rubble. Yuki wakes Yuno and tries to find a way out, but the wounded Ai confronts them and says Marco has escaped and will hunt them down. Yuno sees a chance and holds Ai at knife point, so Marco will sense her danger and come to save her. But seeing Ai as a hostage, Yuki disapproves and tells her to stop. Suddenly Marco tells Yuki to shut up, and Ai can't believe Marco doesn't escape, choosing to save her instead. He calls out Yuki's hypocrisy for always relying on Yuno to save him, but never truly loving her, calling their love fake. Then, he calls out Yuno's hypocrisy for claiming to love Yuki, but never truly understanding him. Marco struggles to make an opening and tells Yuki to help him push. Yuki hesitates, afraid it's a trap, but Marco says that he only wants to save Ai. Hearing that, Yuki tells Yuno that if she loves him, she will help him lift the rubble. So they do it, and when they manage to lift the wall trapping them, they are shocked to see Marco has been stabbed in the gut. Marco sees that he and Ai are going to die from blood loss, and that he's too late to save her. He tells Ai that they failed to become gods but is happy that he can join her in death forever. Then he gives Yuki his parachute and tells him not to feel sorry for his enemies. Meanwhile, Kuro lands and cuts his parachute with a knife. Rada sees Kuro from a distance and confronts him about Yuki. She asks where Yuki is because she's worried, which makes Kuro angry. He holds a knife, clearly intending to use it. Moments later, Yuki and Yuno glide with the parachute. Yuki tells Yuno he wants his parents to reunite, and he needs her help. They land safely thinking everything is fine, but when Yuki reaches the ground, Masumi confronts him. Masumi tries to calm Yuki first, but Yuki suddenly hears nothing, as all he sees is his mother being loaded into an ambulance. Yuki quickly checks his future diary and is devastated to read that his mother is dead. A year ago, when Yuno was stalking Yuki as usual, Yuki tripped and dropped his belongings, and Yuno notices a love letter among them. At school, many of Yuno's classmates admire her, but she knows they only look at her physique. Yuno, however, only has feelings for Yuki, so the attention of others means nothing to her, and she believes that Yuki is the only person who can save her from her hopeless life. Their teacher announces preparations for the school festival. He decides on a maid cafe theme and initially pairs Yuno with Yuki to buy supplies. But then he suddenly remembers that Yuno has a strict house curfew and switches Yuki's partner to Moe instead. Yuno is furious at being replaced by Moe, and recalls that the love letter is for Moe, and refuses to let Yuki give it to her. Yuki and Moe go shopping together. Yuki feels lucky, as he has never had friends before, and now he is walking beside Moe. He thinks today might be the perfect chance to give her his love letter. Moe suddenly takes Yuki's hand, but then a pink rabbit mascot attacks and flees. The person inside the mascot is Yuno, who stalks them all day, unwilling to let them enjoy their rosy world. Inside the store, Yuki tries to buy Moe a drink to set the mood for giving her the letter. But at the vending machine, Yuno appears, spends all his money on drinks, and dashes away. Yuki, still unaware of the mascot's identity, grows annoyed. He goes to the restroom, deciding he will hand the letter to Moe afterward. But Yuno blocks him from entering. Yuki loses his temper and accidentally drops the letter. Yuno lunges to grab it, but Yuki snatches it back and teases her with it. He notices the pink rabbit reaching for the letter again and bolts. Yuno chases after him, desperate. Suddenly someone reports the mascot, and security pursues her. Yuki escapes while Yuno is tackled by security, and she is forced to watch as Yuki gives Moe the love letter. But then, she walks home, realizing she has passed her curfew, but remembers that it no longer matters as her parents are already dead. Yuno speaks to their corpses, remembering how they used to lock her in a cage whenever she broke curfew. One day, she snapped. She drugs her parents and locks them inside the same cage they once used on her. But days later, they die. Yuno feels no grief, and instead she feels relief when Moe rejects Yuki's letter. From that moment, she swears to protect Yuki with everything she has, convinced she still has a future with him. Back in the present, at Yuki's house, he prints a photo of his mother and hangs it on the wall. He still cannot believe she is gone, so he begs Diaz to bring her back. But Diaz refuses as her death is part of fate. Diaz informs Yuki that he is dying, and that the world will face catastrophic casualties, possibly leading to Earth's destruction. Merper tells Yuki that everyone, including himself, will perish. But there remains one way to save everything and make his wish come true, by winning and becoming the new god. Yuki checks his future diary, and sees that Masumi will come to his house. Suddenly a loud crash echoes downstairs. Yuki rushes to find Kuro injured, forcing his way inside. Yuki tends to him but grows furious that Kuro acts as though nothing is wrong. Kuro insists he was attacked by a debt collector nearby, but Yuki spots a pawn shop flyer and suspects his father is hiding evidence. He accuses Kuro of stabbing his mother, but Kuro denies it, calling the accusation baseless, as there is no proof. Still seething, Yuki vows to follow Kuro to the pawn shop and find evidence himself. The next day, Masumi meets Yuno at a cafe and questions her about the third set of human remains discovered in her house. He knows the first two are her parents and dismisses them, but the identity of the third intrigues him. Yuno refuses to answer and storms off, but Masumi remains confident that DNA testing will reveal the truth. Meanwhile, Yuki oversleeps and misses his chance to follow Kuro. He runs after him, but the diary does not change until he finally spots his father, and the diary updates. Yuki sees Kuro carrying a duffel bag, and suspects he intends to dispose of evidence. Kuro escapes and climbs toward a shrine. There, Kuoru feels oddly less exhausted on the stairs and recalls the last time he came there with Yuki and Rhea. Suddenly, Yuki confronts him and checks the duffel bag, expecting evidence. But Yuki instead finds a telescope, and Kuoru breaks down, admitting he will be caught eventually. He came to the shrine to pray for Rhea, and repurchased the telescope from the pawn shop, regretting his past actions. Yuki reminds him of the summer festival's stargazing and suggests they attend together. Kuoru agrees, but only after serving time in jail. He longs to rebuild their bond, but Yuki demands he secure a job first, and Kuoru promises he will. Suddenly, Yuki's future diary updates again, but before he can read it, an enemy stabs Kuoru. Yuki shakes him, desperate, but Kuoru does not respond. Yuki is devastated, seeing how his father finally wanted to change, but now he is dying. Suddenly, Yuki himself is attacked. Murmur's warning echoes in his mind that to save everyone, he must become a god, and defeat those who oppose him. Yuki strikes first, stabbing his assailant. He slaughters 3 attackers, and Yuno finishes the 4th, after consulting her diary. Yuki vomits, horrified by what he has done. Yuno hands him water and comforts him. Shaking, Yuki declares his decision that he will become a god and slaughter everyone who stands in his way. He tells Yuno that she is now his enemy, along with all other diary holders. Suddenly, Yuno drinks water and kisses him, calming his trembling hands. She reminds him that she's willing to die for him anytime, and he drops the knife. Hearing that, Yuki breaks down in tears, as both his parents are gone. Meanwhile, Murmur and Deus watch in silence, realizing the game is coming to an end. Meanwhile, at City Hall, objections rise against the plan to demolish the foster home. The citizens demand to hear the mayor's stance, but to their shock, he suddenly breaks down in tears. Through trembling words, the mayor admits that destroying the orphanage is far too hasty, and says that the idea of those children losing their only home shatters his heart. But the orphanage stands accused of sheltering Tora, the one responsible for the tower explosion. The mayor declares that he treats every child in his city as his own, including the orphans, and he refuses to let them become pawns in a murderous scheme, so he believes that they should move the orphans to a new home and destroy the orphanage. When he asks his opposition to share their reasons, silence fills the hall. With no answers, the mayor calls for a vote on the orphanage's fate, which ends in approval for its destruction. Hearing the outcome, he smiles presently, like a supervillain. Later, Deus summons the remaining diary owners for a meeting. The 11th owner demands the elimination of Yuki and Yuno, pointing out their inactivity for days. Minini attempts to object, knowing 11th orchestrated the orphanage's closure and caused the defeat of 3 diary owners. But Deus acknowledges 11th's reasoning and rules that Yuki and Yuno be disqualified for their absence. Suddenly, Yuki and Yuno appear. Yuki, holding Yuno close, bursts into unsettling laughter. He mocks the group's impatience before turning his eyes toward 11th, boldly declaring that he knows his true identity. Yuki calls him the mayor of the city, and the revelation stuns him, as he never expected a pathetic bum like Yuki to discover the truth. Deus then confirms it, revealing the secret identities of every owner. Yuki explains that though he seemed inactive, he has been tracking 11th, because he resolved to claim godhood. Uncovering the mayor's identity, he says, is simple. For days he visited City Hall, sitting in the lobby and relying on his future diary to collect information. There, he confirmed the mayor's involvement in the plan to tear down the orphanage. This revelation sparks Kamado's hostility toward the mayor, while the mayor himself grows intrigued by Yuki's determination. After the meeting, Yuki and Yuno retreat to an internet cafe. Yuki thanks Yuno for threatening him in speech, admitting that her script and plan enabled him to shake the mayor's confidence by acting like Prime Thanos. Suddenly, Yuno changes clothes in front of him, and Yuki flushes with embarrassment, but she calmly continues dressing while speaking of their next move. She warns that the mayor seized the orphanage to obtain Kamado's server diary, which he intends to weaponize by building an army. Since the orphanage relies on city funding, Kamado has no choice but to comply. Yuno stresses the danger of the mayor's ambition and pulls out both a list of their allies and a new script for Yuki, designed to lure Kamado into siding with them. Elsewhere, Minini meets Masumi at a cafe. She informs him that the 11th diary owner is indeed the mayor, and that Yuki and Yuno are determined to hunt him down. Masumi quietly reveals that he has just been assigned as the mayor's bodyguard, and Minini bursts into laughter, as he now stands at a crossroads, forced to choose sides. Masumi then mentions that the 3rd corpse found in Yuno's house will be identified today, and he has uncovered a disturbing clue that Yuno's parents were elite bankers. Minini grows jealous, believing Yuno comes from a blessed family, but Masumi explains they weren't blessed with children at all, and that Yuno is adopted. Meanwhile, Akise continues investigating the details of Yuno's family. In the hills, Yuki and Yuno succeed in winning Kamado's trust and begin preparing for an assault on the mayor. Yuki outlines the strategy to Kamado's orphans that Rin will lead the offensive with her orphanage diary, while Taro must protect both Kamado and Yuki. Though Taro distrusts and even despises Yuki, he accepts the role for Kamado's sake. As Yuki waits, Rin approaches and shyly hands him a rice ball, promising that it's not poisoned. They eat together, and Rin admits that she always trusted him as a good person, as she has been observing him since the cult incident. Rin explains that Kamado never wished to be God, but her orphans pressed her into it, believing she could create a better world. Then the assault begins. Masumi now serves faithfully at the mayor's side as his bodyguard. But suddenly, Yuki and Kamado's orphans surround them. The mayor grows uneasy, suspecting Yuki may have devised a deeper plan, but he activates a high-output jamming device, neutralizing every diary in range. He prepared this weapon specifically to counter Kamado's group, and then a gunshot rings out. To Taro's horror, he sees Yuki firing upon Kamado's orphans. In the next moment, Rin sees Yuno running at her, thinking he's here to help, but Yuno brutally decapitates Rin. Enraged, Taro charges at Yuki, but Yuno swiftly stabs him. Yuki whispers an apology as Taro collapses, saying he will become God and create a great world for all of them. Kamado, devastated by the massacre, desperately flees from Yuki and Yuno. Masumi intercepts her, takes her into a car, and they escape. Yuki and Yuno immediately give chase. Holding Yuki's diary, Yuno assures him they will catch Kamado and the others. But then she notices his diary predicts that Akise will soon appear with evidence of the DNA from the 3rd corpse in her house. Yuno stiffens, terrified that Yuki will despise her if her secret is revealed. But Yuki notices her shaking and gently takes her hand, assuring her that he will always be with her. Inside the mayor's car, Kamado sobs and blames him for her orphans' deaths. But the mayor replies coldly that she should have realized Yuki and Yuno's true nature earlier. Using his diary, the Watcher, he monitors their every move, and as predicted, Yuki and Yuno catch up and attempt to shoot out his tires. Yuno is startled when the mayor evades the attack, as it suggests he possesses a diary similar to Yuki's. Furious, Yuki crashes his car into the mayor's, sending both vehicles tumbling off a bridge, but they miraculously land intact. Yuki and Yuno confront the mayor, who remembers composed, knowing allies are on their way. Suddenly, Akise and Minini arrive, and Yuno releases her gun to shoot Akise. But Masumi fires first, knocking her eye aside. Minini steps forward, announcing her return from forensics, where she and Akise have been investigating the third corpse from Yuno's house. Akise reveals that the DNA matches no known identity, but he has uncovered something for Yuki. He hands him a small box, and Yuno instantly tenses, scared of what's inside. Yuki opens it with confusion, only to be told it contains Yuno's umbilical cord, and Akise explains that the cord matches the DNA of the third corpse. Yuno panics, begging Yuki not to listen, but Akise delivers the truth that the corpse is the real Yuno, and she died long ago, while the Yuno standing here is an imposter. Yuno clutches Yuki's hand, crying that she is still the Yuno he met and loved. Suddenly, the mayor tries to shoot Yuno, but Yuki saves her at the last moment. Yuki insists to Akise that Yuno is still the Yuno he first met, and that nothing has changed her. Akise urges him to stay, but Yuki and Yuno choose to run away. The next day, Akise regrets not convincing Yuki when he had the chance. Masumi receives a new assignment from his superior and wrestles with which side to choose, while Minini continues to remind him of the choice he must make. Minini takes a shower and resolves to target the mayor, deciding she will win the survival game and claim godhood for herself. Afterward, she receives an email from Masumi, who sends her a field map of the mayor as repayment for his debt. Then Minini heads to the university to scout the mayor, and there the mayor unveils a room full of computers to Kamado and asks her to connect her diary to the network. He dreams of granting the people of Sakurami diary powers, so he can rule the world like the dictators of the past. Minini finally loses patience and hurls a grenade at him, intending to end it all and destroy the system. But the mayor, anticipating her attack, catches the grenade and throws it back. Minini flees just before the explosion, which prompts Masumi to dispatch detectives to the scene. Minini checks her diary to plan her escape to the research facility, but for the first time her diary malfunctions. No matter where she goes, police surround her, cutting off every route. She realizes that the mayor's diary works in a way similar to Tsubaki's, and the mayor and Kamado survive the blast and order detectives to send men to the boys' dorm. Confident Minini will head there. Minini does reach the boys' dorm but hears police closing in, and at the last moment Masumi saves her. The police search the dorm but find no trace of her and eventually withdraw. Masumi then lies over the radio, claiming Minini is heading to the central district and requesting backup, successfully diverting them. He tells Minini he has chosen her side and he explains that something shifts in his heart. Suddenly he pulls out a wedding ring and proposes marriage to her. Minini blushes furiously, misunderstanding the word marry as a demand to spread her slit and give him children. She refuses, but Masumi rizzes her up, insisting she should take his babies. Meanwhile, in the server room, the mayor again pressures Kamado for her diary. Reluctantly, she begins undressing to reveal her diary, wanting to prevent more casualties. Elsewhere, Masumi chases after Minini, demanding her answer. Irritated by his persistence, Minini tells him that if he wants her to be his woman, he must first destroy the mayor's computers. Masumi accepts on the condition that if he succeeds, they marry immediately. Minini storms into the computer building, defeating a squad of detectives, and throws a flashbang, but they use anti-flashbang goggles and subdue her. On the floor, she sees a vision of her younger self crying and remembers that this is a do-or-die moment. She arms a grenade, but Masumi arrives, shooting down his colleagues. He seizes the grenade and throws it into the server room, blowing up the whole thing. Outside, alone at the university, Masumi embraces Minini from behind and declares she belongs to him. Minini grows flustered as he leans in to kiss her, but a sudden call interrupts. Masumi is summoned to the city as chaos is happening. Together, Minini and Masumi travel into the city, only to discover people now wielding future diaries of their own. They realize that the mayor and Kamado have survived, and while the servers are damaged, they have 2 more servers to copy Kamado's diary abilities. Murmur gloats to Deus, telling him he has been checkmated, as everything unfolds according to her plan, and she declares the only way to defeat the mayor is to discover the weakness of his diary. Deus, shaken, withdraws into an egg, claiming he must rest while secretly contemplating how to counter Murmur before he loses his power completely, so he begins considering who might inherit his power. Meanwhile, Minini and Masumi hide, unconcerned about being attacked. Masumi tries to call Akise, but suddenly, Oji, Hinata, and Mao appear, offering help, while Minini doesn't recognize them. They lead Minini and Masumi to a base camp belonging to Oji's friend, where they display their newly acquired diaries. Oji tells Masumi that Akise will soon contact him for assistance, and mentions the 2 servers. Minini snatches Oji's diary and reads aloud its prediction that Masumi will confront 2 engineers who reveal the server locations, one in the quad towers and another in the city center. Minini concludes both must be destroyed at the same time, and volunteers to attack the quad towers the next day. Oji, however, refuses to aid her, blaming her for the deaths of his friends, but Minini declares she doesn't need his help. She tells Masumi to go home, and he reluctantly does. Then outside, Minini sets her squirrels down and notices one is pregnant, which unexpectedly excites her. Masumi then returns with a drink, confessing that he chooses to stay with her and help destroy the servers. The next day, Minini and Masumi prepare for battle. but are surprised when Oji, Hinata, and Mao arrive, offering their help since they have nothing better to do. Oji yaps that he is their strongest weapon because of his telescope, which he can stupidly use to spy others' diaries. Seeing the telescope, Minini realizes the truth of the mayor's diary. Back at the university, the mayor anticipated her every move, but Masumi had not been targeted when he destroyed the system. This proves that the mayor's diary can only track the actions of other diary holders. Determined, Minini visits Deus to confirm her theory. Deus welcomes her, explains that Murmur cannot enter the egg, and asks a favor of her. Just as she poses her question, she feels herself stabbed, only to wake up and realize it is an illusion. The pain feels so real that she gasps. While Deus laughs, Deus then reveals that he and the mayor once designed various archetypes of future diaries, showing them to her. The mayor's diary, he explains, is the progenitor of all diaries, capable of observing every other. Minini devises a strategy and heads for the quad tower. The mayor, aware of her group's movements, orders security to corner them. But to his shock, his diary feels as Minini and her allies aren't where it says they should be. They exploit a lying diary which baffles him by editing their diaries afterward. Yet he remains calm, confident that his assistant's diary can detect falsehoods in his own. Minini and Masumi reach the server room, confident they can win, but are suddenly caught in an explosion. Minini loses her right hand, and Masumi is shot, while Oji and the others are captured by security. Dragging Masumi to a stairwell, Minini desperately tries to stop his bleeding. Masumi urges her to leave, but security surrounds them and opens fire. But Masumi shields Minini from the bullets, solidifying his death. Suddenly, a guard collapses from a gunshot, and Minini looks up in shock to see Yuki descend the stairs, revealing he shot the man. Minini suspects Yuki is using her as a decoy, but he remains silent, following his own plan. Below, Yuno slaughters security guards to clear Yuki's path. Yuki and Minini rush into the elevator, and he tells her he has a way to defeat the mayor. At the same time, Yuno emerges, holding civilians hostage, and Yuki declares that these civilians are the mayor's weakness. In the quad tower, the mayor's assistant informs him that Yuno is on a rampage with her katana downstairs, slaughtering people without hesitation. The news team manages to get a helicopter in the air to document the chaos at the quad tower, broadcasting reports about the demands of the so-called terrorists. Yuki and Yuno demand that Oji, Hinata, and Mao be released immediately, or they will start ending hostages. After announcing his demands, Yuki orders Yuno to save Oji and his friends. Minini quickly realizes that Yuki has already planned this assault in advance, and has successfully cornered the mayor by using the hostages as leverage. She notices how much Yuki has changed, as he now carries a dark, mischievous energy, and his innocence is gone. Yuki calmly tells Minini that his wish is to become a god so he can bring back his parents. After Yuki leaves, Minini takes one last long look at Masumi before walking away, and she knows she must become a terrorist again if she hopes to stop Yuki. Minini and Yuki rush to get the mayor. But along the way, Minini reminds Yuki of what he did to Masumi and her left eye. While she is willing to help him defeat the mayor, she warns him that once the mayor is dead, or if Yuki fails his mission, she will end him herself. Yuki and Minini head toward the bank inside the tower, because that's where the mayor is hiding. At the vault entrance, the mayor greets them with a sly smile and reveals an unsettling fact, that the bank once belonged to Yuno's parents. Without another word, he leaves them behind. The mayor approaches the vault and feels a wave of shame, knowing this vault is his last line of protection against them. Yuki and Minini chase after him, but they arrive too late, as the mayor has already locked himself inside. Minini injures the mayor's assistant during the pursuit, forcing the mayor to abandon him. Yuki tries to open the vault but discovers it requires a passcode. Minini forces the assistant to unlock it, but when the door opens, they are shocked to find a second vault door hidden inside. Furious, they shoot the assistant on the spot. Meanwhile, Oji, Hinata, and Mao are still being held captive by security. Oji keeps talking non-stop, annoying the guards to the point of frustration. They finally receive an order to execute Oji and his friends, but Oji desperately begs them not to clap them, insisting they're just joking. As a guard releases his gun to pull the trigger, Yuno suddenly appears and slaughters all of them. After saving Oji and the others, Yuno leads them toward the nearest exit, but then leaves them behind when her diary reveals that Yuki is in danger at the bank. Back at the vault, Yuki tells Minini that the second door requires both a passcode and a key, which means their mission has effectively reeled. Minini immediately pulls her gun and presses it against Yuki's head, declaring that since the mission is over, she has no choice but to shoot him and avenge Masumi's death, the only person who promised to make her happy. It turns into a cat-and-mouse chase, and hiding nearby, Yuki waits for Yuno to arrive, knowing from his future diary that he's hit a dead end. Minini, now losing blood rapidly, shifts her focus entirely to ending Yuki. She taunts him, saying he'll never become a god to bring his parents back, because too many others desire the same thing. She begins telling Yuki her tragic story in the Middle East, where she lost both of her parents during the war, and was left to fend for herself, forced to steal food and survive countless near-death experiences. She admits she likes Yuki because he reminds her of herself, someone equally pathetic, reckless, and broken. But she shouts that his dream will never come true. Minini expects Yuki to peek out so she can finish him, warning him that if he doesn't change the future, she'll find and end him. But if he does change it, his diary will betray his location. Cornered and desperate, Yuki notices a set of pens nearby and sees them as a potential escape tool. Inside the vault, the mayor relaxes, certain that no one can breach the second door. It requires a retina scan, and only the mayor, Yuno's parents, and the real Yuno can pass. Confident, he believes the fake Yuno cannot possibly get inside. Meanwhile, Yuno attempts to end Kamado but is stopped by Akise, who intervenes to protect Kamado from her berserk attacks. Suddenly, Yuno freezes when her diary reveals that Yuki writes a will apologizing to her and asking her to bring his parents back. Back at the bank, Minini searches for Yuki and laughs mockingly, enjoying how pathetic he looks. She hears the sound of Yuki's future diary and rushes toward it, only to find the diary itself lying on the ground. Suddenly, Yuki ambushes her and shoots her weapon out of her hands, cornering her. Yuki hesitates, saying he can't shoot her because he has never truly wanted to take any lives. Tearfully, he confesses that he feels selfish and lost after his parents' deaths, unsure of what to do next. Minini has had enough and punches him hard, sending him tumbling to the floor. She grabs her gun and prepares to shoot him, but suddenly sees a vision of her younger self hiding behind Yuki. Shaken, she hesitates. In that instant, Yuki shoots her in the gut. Collapsing, Minini realizes in her final moments that she and Yuki are the same, as they are both lost souls who lost their parents too soon. Watching their struggle from within the vault, the mayor applauds mockingly, entertained by their desperate attempts to murder each other. Yuki moves toward the second vault door but is confronted by the mayor, who mocks him for living such a boring life and expresses surprise that Yuki managed to shoot Minini. Suddenly, Minini rises to her feet, shocking both of them. She tells Yuki she understands his pet man, and urges him to take responsibility once his mission is complete. Without hesitation, she steps into the vault, carrying a bomb wired to her heartbeat, ready to explode when her heart stops. Inside, she prepares to destroy her diary, effectively stopping her pulse. In her final moments, she envisions her younger self reunited with her parents, which makes her cry. And while smiling presently, she shatters her diary. As she dies, Masumi appears beside her. The bomb detonates, and Yuki rushes to open the first vault door, only to discover the second door remains intact, and Minini's sacrifice was a waste. Just then, Yuno arrives and tells Yuki to focus on destroying the servers while she keeps the mayor occupied. Yuki follows her order and smashes the remaining servers, but moments later, reads that Yuno ended the mayor, which leaves him questioning how she managed to open the second vault door. Moments ago, the mayor was confident in his safety, but suddenly, he watched as the second vault door unexpectedly opens. He saw Yuno standing in the corner like a ghost and believing it to be a hallucination, but ended up getting shot by her. Days later, Yuki wakes up in bed with Yuno sleeping beside him. Embarrassed by the fact that she isn't wearing plot armor, he nervously tells her to get dressed before he does something reckless. Relieved, Yuki believes the future now looks bright, since only one diary holder remembers besides them, Kamado. Meanwhile, in Akase's house, Kamado, Akase and the others gather in the living room to discuss their next move. Akase explains that Yuki must become God because he believes Yuki would create a better world, but he warns that Yuno cannot be trusted, especially after witnessing her entering the vault without issues. His doubts about her true identity deepen, but suddenly, a black sphere appears in the middle of the living room, shocking everyone. Later, as Yuki and Yuno have lunch together, Yuno reminds him of his promise that once he becomes God, he must take her life and reset the world. At that moment, the same black sphere appears in Yuki's house. They rush outside, and Yuno warns him that Deus's death is near, which means the world's collapse is approaching. The only way to stop it is by finding a new god, and Yuki promises her that he will reset everything and make her happy. Inside Deus's cathedral, Murmur suspects Deus has done something unexpected. As he is dying faster than predicted, she works tirelessly to ensure her plan stays on track. Just then, Kamado and Akise arrive at the cathedral, but Murmur immediately attacks Akise, declaring him unworthy. Deus stops her and explains that Akise's question of whether the new god can truly reset everything is valid and must be answered. Deus welcomes him into the Grand Hall, and as an observer, he promises to give Akise the truth. Deus reveals that Akise himself is an observer, an advanced information storage device personally created by Deus. Shocked, Akise tries to run, but Deus forces him to stay, explains that Akise must eventually return to the Akashic record in heaven, because he was born from Deus's design. Deus explains that the Akashic record is an archive containing all predetermined futures. As Akise's body begins to collapse, Deus calmly tells him that every time he chases the diary owners, he does so not by free will, but because he is fulfilling his role, merely collecting records for Deus as instructed. Akise refuses to believe this. In response, Deus challenges him that if Akise can name even one action he has taken by his own free will, Deus will acknowledge him as a singular being. Akise speaks about his journey pursuing the diary owners, but Deus dismisses it, saying that every step has still been part of Deus's intention and plan. As Akise begins to fade away, he cries out that his love for Yuki is his final act of free will. Deus rejects this claim, calling it a fabrication. Akise's body almost completely vanishes, leaving only his hand as he prepares to be reconstructed according to Deus's original plan. However, back in the real world, Kamado and the others help him. Because Akise is not a diary owner, Kamado instructs Oji to transcribe Akise's diary from his notebook into a digital format, so that she can transform it into a proper future diary using her ability. Deus, taken by surprise, watches as Akise receives his new future diary, one originally intended for him, a diary that constantly records the actions of its owner. Revived and determined, Akise confronts Deus, declaring that from now on he will fight for Yuki and carve out his own future, not one dictated by Deus's instructions. Deus, impressed by Akise's resolve, finally recognizes his individuality and grants him permission to leave, allowing him to shape the future with his own will. Meanwhile, Yuki and Yuno head toward Akise's house, convinced that they must end Kamado to save the world. While running, Yuno suddenly stops and asks Yuki if he would slaughter Oji and the others if they betrayed him. Yuki remains silent and continues toward their destination. When they arrive, they find only Akise waiting for them. He calmly greets them and requests to speak with Yuki alone. Yuno, suspicious, accuses Akise and the others of betrayal after spotting Kamado and her group running away. Without hesitation, Yuno stabs Akise in the chest, and Yuki's diary shows him a vision that Akise dies and Kamado's location is revealed. But suddenly, Akise rises unharmed as Yuno reaches for her knife again. He wears a protective vest and rubber gloves, blocking all of her attacks. Yuki notices something strange, that Akise predicts every move they make, even when his diary states that he's dead. Akise reveals the truth that he is now a diary owner, and his future diary allows him to foresee the actions of other diary owners. Hearing this, Yuno orders Yuki to pursue Kamado, while she battles Akise herself. He goes after them, and Yuki's future diary shows Oji and his friends betraying him, fueling his distrust despite wanting to believe them. Hinata confronts Yuki, who holds a gun aimed at Kamado. She begs him not to shoot her, insisting that Yuno has been lying all along. She then delivers a shocking truth, that even a god cannot bring the dead back to life, and Yuki hesitates, stunned by her clemency. Back at Akise's house, he faces off against Yuno, deliberately stalling her to give his friends time to reach Yuki. Yuno mocks him, insisting his efforts are pointless, but Akise refuses to waver. Suddenly, Yuno plunges a knife into herself, forcing Akise into a dilemma. She warns him to consider how devastated Yuki would be if she dies, and panicked, Akise rushes to her side and tries to call Yuki for help. Meanwhile, Yuki laughs bitterly at Hinata, refusing to believe her revelation. He cannot accept that God lacks the power to revive the dead, especially after keeping track of every life he has ended. Suddenly, Yuki receives a frantic call from Yuno, who screams for help and claims Akise is trying to kill her, while insisting his friends plan to betray him. Not knowing that her words are lies, manipulations to bend Yuki to her will. Yuki demands that Hinata explain why his future diary predicts her betrayal, and Hinata desperately tries to make him see the truth, but Yuki refuses to listen and brutally shoots her. He turns his gun on Kamado next, but Mao steps in, trembling yet furious, accusing Yuki of being a coward afraid of reality. Overcome by emotion, Yuki shoots Mao as well. Oji, shaken, refuses to interfere. He declares he's done with the future diary game and leaves, but not before unleashing years of resentment, telling Yuki he has always hated him because his tears make him look like a helpless begging dog. Enraged, Oji tries to attack Yuki, but Yuki shoots him too. At that moment, Akase arrives and confronts Yuki for shooting his friends. Calm yet sharp, Akise warns Yuki that in just a few minutes, he will end Yuno himself. He explains that Yuno is only using Yuki and plans to murder him to become God, but in a fit of rage, Yuki attempts to shoot Akise, but realizes he is out of bullets. Just then, Yuno pops up and confronts Yuki and Akise, urging Yuki not to listen to Akise and to trust only her. But as a final FU to Yuno, Akise kisses Yuki in front of her, which enrages her. Akise and Yuno clash fiercely, and he manages to destroy her diary, but Yuno counters with a deadly strike, slicing Akise's throat. Stunned and struggling to breathe, Akise realizes Yuno should have died when her diary was destroyed, but sees a second diary. He notices her future diary changes before he destroyed it, confirming it is genuine and impossible to fake. But a chilling thought strikes him, questioning whose diary she is truly holding. Yuno, unfazed, tells Yuki not to worry about Akise, and urges him to finish their mission, ending Kamado. Yuki asks her about the diary Akise destroyed, but she brushes it off, saying it's a fake. Then, as Yuno prepares to stab the helpless Kamado, Kamado kindly encourages Yuki to create a better world for the children. Barely alive, Akise pieces together the horrifying truth. and he concludes that the real Yuno cannot possibly have a future diary if Deus granted one to this fake Yuno. At first he suspects she might be a twin, but then realizes something worse. Wounded and staggering, Akise reveals himself to Yuki and Yuno, attempting to warn them, but his slit throat prevents him from speaking. Desperate, he writes a message for Yuki, determined to expose the truth. Yuno strikes once more, severing Akise's head, but even headless, his body continues forward, clutching the message to his beloved Yuki. In the cathedral, Murmur picks up Deus's core after his death, but Deus tells her she cannot use her powers because he has placed a special bracelet on her. She lifts Deus's throne, sets it upon her head, and declares herself the new god. Meanwhile, Yuno tells Yuki that the world will end in just a few days, which unsettles him deeply. However, she reassures him not to worry about that day, promising it will be her most important day, the day she and Yuki finally have their happy ending together. 3 days later, Yuki stays at Yuno's house. When he wakes up, he is surprised to find that she has running water and working electricity. He suspects she is stealing it from somewhere, but he does not care, as after all, the world is ending. Searching for Yuno, he eventually finds her bathing in the backyard. Embarrassed, he assumes she is undressed, but Yuno quickly reveals that she is wearing a swimsuit. Yuki falls silent, thinking about the deaths of his friends and family. He recalls how everyone warned him that Yuno was only using him, and a part of him believes they might have been right, but he brushes the thought aside as there are no more diary owners left, and he feels safe with her. But still, the thought lingers. The next day, Yuki keeps his eyes locked on his future diary, worried that Yuno might do something unexpected. But instead, Yuno surprises him by giving him her father's clothes. Suddenly, she asks him if they can bathe together, and flustered, Yuki refuses, saying he cannot leave his diary behind because it would make him vulnerable. After dinner, Yuno grows worried that Yuki sees her as someone capable of ending him. Tearfully, she explains that all she wanted was for him to love her back, even after everything they did. Overwhelmed, she cries and runs away. That night, at midnight, Yuki lies awake, unable to sleep, confused by her feelings. He believes that if Yuno truly wanted to harm him, she would have had countless chances, yet she never has, which makes him think that she really does love him. The following day, Yuno goes to Yuki's room, only to find he has left her house. Yuki returns to his own home, haunted by memories of his parents, and then wanders to his school. Agrees to face Yuno because he still cannot make sense of his emotions. Suddenly, Yuno appears before him and reminds him that this school is where they first met. She promises Yuki that no matter what happens, he will be the only person she will ever love. The next day, Yuki regrets breaking Yuno's heart and decides to give her something meaningful. This decision causes Yuno's diary to change, from predicting a lonely ending to one where she becomes one with Yuki. He goes to her house and shyly asks her to bathe together. Both of them blush as they bathe. And later that night, they lie together in bed. Yuno softly tells Yuki to be gentle since it is their first time. They shake the bed, both nervous yet happy being in love with each other. Afterward, Yuki asks her why she lied about being able to revive the dead, and Yuno suddenly reveals an axe she had hidden. She then reveals a painful truth, that she lied when she said the dead cannot come back. She only said it because she wanted him to be happy without worrying about impossible hopes. Then she insists that Yuki must end her so that he can live. However, he refuses, not wanting to be a god, and preferring to be with her rather than achieving godhood, and tells her about a strange message he received from Akise the last time they met. Alarmed, Yuno listens carefully as Yuki explains that the message implied that Yuno was already a winner in the previous world, and is now a god who traveled back in time. Suddenly, without warning, Yuno swings her axe at Yuki, saying he has learned the truth too early. She tries to slash him. Shocked and heartbroken, Yuki runs, struggling to comprehend how moments ago they were so perfect together. He races outside, only to be pushed by Murmur into a mysterious hole. Yuki wakes up inside the classroom, where he first met Yuno. Murmur is there, and she begins explaining everything. She tells him that back then, Yuno was a hopeless girl, until Yuki gave her a reason to live, which was the desire to become his bride. Murmur urges him to follow her to uncover the truth about Yuno, and she leads him to a strange place where they can see both the past and the future, revealing that Yuki is living in the second world. Murmur shows him visions of the first world, where Yuno made her first mistake. In that world, Yuki and Yuno sleep side by side until the first world Yuki dies after drinking a death pill, which Murmur calls Yuno's first mistake, as the first world Yuno does not take her own pills, surviving and becoming God instead, which is her second mistake. Murmur explains that after becoming God, Yuno wished for Yuki to come back to life, but only his body revived, not his soul. Desperate, Yuno made another wish to go back in time to when Yuki was still alive. She spawns in her house, only to find her second world self sitting next to her parents' cage. And the first world Yuno slaughters the second world Yuno so she can live happily with Yuki, even though she knows they are fated to die. Yuki cries upon learning the devastating truth that both Yunos are real, but the Yuno he has known all along, the second world Yuno, died at the hands of the first world Yuno. He reaches out to touch his Yuno, the one who wanted to marry him, But she is only a vision. Suddenly, the vision's world begins to shake violently. Against all odds, Yuki manages to communicate with his Yuno across worlds. The second world Yuno senses his presence and writes, "Help me," on her wall, pleading for Yuki to save her from the other Yuno. Murmur is stunned by this unprecedented phenomenon. The vision then collapses, the world continues to quake, and Yuki awakens in the real world, ready to face Yuno and uncover the full truth. On the day the first world Yuno slaughtered the second world Yuno, Murmur suddenly surprises the first world Yuno and tells her that she must get rid of the body quickly, because Murmur shuts Deus's eyes, preventing the first world Yuno from being executed. Murmur then gives Yuno the second world Yuno's future diary, and tells her that she has to become a god again and live happily with Yuki before they both end their lives. Back at Yuno's house, Yuno learns that Yuki already knows the truth, and Yuki cannot believe Yuno slaughtered herself. Then the world begins to destroy itself, and Murmur finds the situation dangerous, so she moves them to Deus's cathedral, where they can either talk things out or fight. Murmur tells Yuki not to be too hard on Yuno, because she has gone through so much. Murmur explains that ever since the first world Yuno arrived in the second world, many unforeseen events have occurred, causing the world's history to take a completely different path. Yuno then confronts Yuki about his idea of ending themselves, and she reminds him that he once said he would not be willing to become a god if it meant taking her life, which makes Yuki feel down because he realizes he cannot bring himself to end her. Yuno starts going crazy and tells Yuki that she is going to butcher him and become god again, so she can go to the third world and live with him there. She argues that there is no point in both of them dying because if the world ends, they both die, and no one becomes god. Suddenly, Murmur pushes Yuki, and while falling from the sky, Yuki regrets betraying his friends, who are trying to save him, and realizes that he has become just like Yuno. Murmur tells Yuno to take control of the world so that she will be declared god again, but Yuno feels conflicted seeing her loved one dying. Suddenly, as Murmur begins to declare Yuno the new god, Yuno's future diary suddenly changes, shocking Murmur because the future itself has shifted. Yuki manages to grab onto a rock and tries to crawl up toward Yuno. He tells her that even though he may be just a small piece in the world, he still considers her important to him, and he will try to save her no matter what. Then Yuno bursts into tears as she watches Yuki slip and fall. Suddenly, a person in a hoodie rescues Yuki. When he sees who it is, he is shocked to find Minini alive and well. Murmur cannot believe Minini is still alive and interrupts the declaration. She immediately tries to attack Minini, but Minini flies into the eye and dodges the assault. Minini mocks Murmur for playing favorites, which makes Murmur realize that Minini possesses Deus's power. Murmur quickly grabs Yuno and runs away with her so she can time travel again. Yuki tells Minini to chase after them because he wants to stop Yuno before she travels back in time, which excites Minini to see Yuki finally showing courage. Minini brings Yuki into the sky, where Murmur is carrying Yuno. As they leave Deus's cathedral, Yuki feels moved when he sees the stars. Minini and Yuki follow Yuno back in time and crash into a building. They find themselves in a normal world exactly 2 years before it ends. Yuki asks why she's alive, and Minini explains that she survives because before she dies inside the vault, she discovers Deus's power within her. When Minini confronts Deus, he gives her half of his power and knowledge because he knows Murmur is manipulating the game and trying to make the first world Yuno become god again. Deus entrusts Minini with cleaning up the mess, knowing that she does not believe in God. While changing clothes, Minini tells Yuki that the first world Yuno is planning to get the third world Yuno and repeat the cycle, but Minini says Yuki is the only person who can stop it. Yuki then sees his future diary showing that in just a couple of hours, the first world Yuno will arrive through time travel and butcher the third world Yuno. Minini explains that they arrive earlier than Yuno, and that the game is still active because no god has been declared yet. She reassures Yuki not to worry, and then leaves to protect the third world Yuno. At the third world Yuno's house, her mother calls her father, frustrated that she is left alone to care for Yuno. She angrily complains that her husband does not care about her at all, and Yuno's mother yells at Yuno in her cage, believing that Yuno despises her. She declares that she will leave Yuno and her father because she feels unloved and unwanted in their home. Yuno begs her mother to stay, but it is too late, and she storms out of the room. Meanwhile, Yuki and Minini visit the third world, and Yuki wants to see his parents and friends alive there. Minini quickly reminds him that this is not his world, and that they need to prepare before Murmur and Yuno arrive. Yuki and Minini go to the third world Yuno's house and find that her parents are not home. Yuki quietly tells Minini that the third world Yuno is behind the sliding door, and he tries to enter. Minini warns him not to interfere, because it could cause more unpredictable changes to the future, and she does not want to clean up the resulting mess. Ignoring her warning, Yuki opens and sees Yuno drowning in her day-old pests and choking on grass as her only food. He quickly calls an ambulance for the third world Yuno, who is attempting to clap her own life. Suddenly, the first world Yuno and Murmur appear before them. Yuno angrily tells Yuki that his future diary bothers her, then reveals that his parents are being held hostage. Yuno warns Yuki to prepare himself because they are going to slaughter each other, but Minini immediately drops a smoke bomb and grabs Yuki and Yuno, helping them escape. Minini flies them toward the tower, where Yuki cries and struggles to break free, insisting that he must save his parents. Having reached her limit, Minini throws him onto the floor. She coldly tells him that his parents are already dead, and that he can't save everyone. Picking him up, she urges Yuki to make up his mind because he is trying to save too many things at once. Yuno gazes at the half-moon in the sky and it reminds her of herself. Merchmer urges her to proceed with their plan. But Yuno notices that her diary reveals she feels excited knowing Yuki manages to reach the third world. She tries to convince herself to move on from the second world's Yuki because she must repeat the cycle where she can live with Yuki again and again. Suddenly she hears an ambulance speeding past her house and her father running inside to save her. Yuno goes to confront her father and recalls beautiful memories with her parents. But her father notices that this Yuno isn't his Yuno because she has grown. But before he can react, Yuno stabs him. She tries to attack the paramedics, yet Merchmer stops her, warning her that attacking them could disrupt the world's rift. Meanwhile, Minini struggles to accept that Yuki is trying to save everyone. She calls him an idiot, and leaves him at school with the third world Yuno. Minini then calls Keigo, informing him that his son will die in 2 years from a disease and must be treated immediately. Keigo doesn't recognize her voice, but Minini hangs up, relieved she has fulfilled her promise to him. Yuki walks into the school, promising himself that he will save everyone. He begins to wonder why he fell in love with Yuno in the first place. As he enters his classroom, he remembers the moment when they wrote their dreams together, realizing that is when his feelings began. Yuki places the third world Yuno inside the classroom, but his future diary warns him that Yuno will come after him. Stepping into the hallway, he sees Yuno waiting. Suddenly she attacks, but Yuki narrowly dodges. Yuno becomes furious, realizing Yuki has evolved, and orders Murmur to help her. Murmur creates bombs and forms a black sphere around the school, trapping Yuki inside. While Yuno's diary tells her she must save Yuki because he is in danger, Yuno fights to shake herself awake from her conflicting emotions. Yuki checks his own diary and sees an entry revealing he hits a dead end after Yuno stabs him with a knife. Instead of panicking, Yuki believes he has a solution and decides to change Yuno, even if it means dying, so she can become a god and avoid hurting the third world Yuno. Yuki confronts Yuno and declares that he will never stop chasing her. He steps closer, trying to reach her with his words, but Murmur blocks him and hurls a massive sphere at him. Murmur assumes Yuki is dead, but he survives by anticipating. Suddenly, Yuno throws a knife at him, but Yuki shouts that he chases her because he loves her, causing her throw to miss. Murmur attempts to end Yuki, but Minini intervenes, attacking her. Yuki continues trying to reach Yuno, but then notices that Yuno's future diary changes, predicting that Yuki will die by being crushed under a giant sphere. While Minini fights Murmur, Yuno seizes Deus's core and uses the sphere to finish Yuki. Hours before, at the police station, Yuno's mother reports the incident involving Yuno and her father to Keigo. Suddenly, Keigo receives a call from Minini, who warns him about his dying son. But moments later, another policeman informs Keigo that an explosion has occurred at the school. Keigo brings Masumi with him to investigate the scene. Around the city, other diary owners still don't have their diaries yet, and they see the battle that is happening. Suddenly, Yuki wakes up in his house and is shocked to see his parents alive and together again. Entering his room, he notices he finally has the jacket and the bird he once wanted. Suddenly, the roof above him opens, and Yuno appears. She tells Yuki that she used Deus's core to create a world where he has everything he desires, a world without her. Yuki tries to reach her, but he can't because Yuno has built this world without including herself in it. Yuno tells him they have to break up, but Yuki refuses, begging her to return to the second world where they can fix everything together. Yuno, however, declares that she plans to trap him inside her recreated world and meet with the third world Yuki instead. She admits she will always need a Yuki and could become obsessed with anyone. But with him, it is different. Then she confronts Yuki about how he has been using her as a shield. Yuki tries to expel himself, but Yuno closes her world and spawns Moe beside him. Moe begins approaching Yuki for some hanky-panky. He tries to back away, but he can't escape, knowing Yuno controls everything within this world. Yuki acknowledges that he has indeed used Yuno as a shield, but despite their twisted relationship, his feelings for her are real. Meanwhile, Minini confronts Yuno, who now stands alone. Minini hands Murmur over to her, and Yuno asks her why she's on Yuki's side. Minini refuses to answer, thinking the question is foolish, and instead tells Yuno to prepare for their fight. Just as Minini throws a punch, Yuno removes Murmur's bracelet, restoring Murmur's full power. Murmur blocks Minini's strike and begins brutally attacking her. Minini, unable to fight against Murmur's unleashed strength, is thrown from building to building. Outside, Minini lies battered, lost an arm and unconscious from her fight with Murmur. Yuno picks her up effortlessly and throws her from the school building. With a knife in hand, Yuno enters the classroom and sees the third world Yuno lying unconscious inside. Inside Yuki's recreated world, he sits at the table having breakfast with his parents. The three prepare for a trip to see the stars when Ria notices Yuki crying. Yuki tells them he dreamed of owning a diary that could predict the future and meeting a strange girl he loves. He explains that the reason he loves that strange girl is the same reason he loves both of his parents, because she is always with him. Yuki wakes up in his room, feeling comfortable in his little world. He and his parents prepare for their trip to see the stars. Yuki and his father laugh about her being clumsy, unaware that they are living inside a fabricated world Yuno creates. Murmur admires Yuno's achievement and praises her little world, proud of its stability. Then, Murmur repairs Yuno's father, so the casualty remains intact, ensuring the world doesn't collapse. Before heading back to Deus's cathedral, Murmur urges Yuno to hurry and end the third world Yuno. Yuno hesitates but contemplates participating in the survival game again, so she can be with the third world Yuki. Despite everything the second world Yuki has done for her, she already plans to say goodbye to him and meet her next Yuki. Suddenly, the third world Yuno starts searching for her father, which forces Yuno to confront the innocence she once had. The third world Yuno wakes up and sees a figure in a black robe, Yuno herself. Yuno tells the other third world Yuno that she knows her future intimately and begins to describe it. Her mother's worsening mental state, her father's constant absence, and the pain of feeling abandoned. Yuno reveals that, one day, she will be attacked by her own mother, shattering her heart until she finally has had enough. She explains how she will drug both her parents and lock them in a cage so they can experience her suffering. Yuno warns the other Yuno that she is lucky, as she won't have to endure the same pain. Pulling out her knife, Yuno prepares to finish her. But the third world Yuno insists everything Yuno says isn't true, claiming her parents love her. Shocked, Yuno recalls the bright future she once dreamed of, and wonders when her life began to spiral. She doesn't want to listen, insisting she has someone important to meet, but the third world Yuno continues, saying she loves her parents, and asking Yuno if she has ever truly loved anyone. This unexpected confrontation causes the casualty to destabilize, and Murmur senses the disruption. She traces the problem back to Yuki's little world, realizing it's the source. Inside that artificial world, Yuki and his parents wait at a railroad crossing. He and Koru walk forward, but Yuki remains still, feeling something isn't right. His parents gently encourage him, reminding him of the strange girl from his dreams. They tell him they'll always be with him, but urge him to follow his heart and complete his mission. Suddenly, Yuki's memories of his past life and Yuno flood back, and he desperately tries to break free from the little world. Meanwhile, Murmur struggles to stabilize reality as the casualty continues unraveling. She sees the diary owner's future shifting toward happier outcomes, threatening the existence of the survival game entirely. The mayor arrives at Deus's cathedral, declaring that he has completed the future diary but foresees his dead end, rendering the survival game meaningless. His statement forces Deus to reconsider the identity of the next god, stopping the next game entirely. Across timelines, lives change. Tsubaki's parents survive after discovering their attacker. 12th captures the psychopath. Hinata grows closer to her father. Ai and Marco remember together while worrying about Kamado. Masumi rushes to the school to save an injured Minini. Back at school, Yuno's mother spots her husband at the school, trying to protect the third world Yuno. Yuno, pressured by Murmur, prepares to stab the third world Yuno, but accidentally stabs her father instead. Horrified, Yuno steps back, watching her mother cry over the wounded man, making the first world Yuno see what her future could have been, a happy family. Suddenly, Kigo fires at Yuno, but the second world Murmur blocks the shot. At that moment, Yuki finally escapes his little world to save Yuno. The second world Murmur shocks her counterpart by revealing she has been trapped inside a sphere all along. She stops the original Murmur and marks her forehead with a sign to distinguish the two. Yuki tells Yuno that he returned because he wants to be with her, not in his false, happy world. Moved by his determination, Yuno listens as Yuki calmly asks her to stab him. But as she glances at the third world Yuno's parents crying and envisions herself stabbing Yuki to become a god again, Yuno hesitates. At last, she chooses to change the future by ending her own life, refusing to end Yuki. Before she dies, Yuno tells Yuki she finally has a place to belong, and orders him to kiss her. Yuki kisses her deeply, and Yuno smiles, teasing him for becoming a better kisser. Suddenly, the second world Murmur declares Yuki the winner of the survival game. With little time left, Murmur takes Yuki back to his original, collapsing second world. All the while she screams Yuno's name. It ends with Yuki as the god of his new world, but he stands there, frozen, devoid of everything. Years later, the third world thrives in peace and harmony. Minana has children with Masumi, while secretly returning her powers from Deus. Ai is pregnant, and Marco is thrilled to become a father. The mayor and Kamado enjoy their dates together, as the orphanage gets better funding. 12th regularly visits the imprisoned psychopath, and Keigo successfully gets his son treated. Tsubaki lives happily with her parents, while Hinata, Mao, Oji, and Akise play games together in Oji's house. Reisuke learns to walk with his parents' help. And lastly, Yuno enjoys time at a cafe with friends, proudly showing them her family diary. She senses that she has forgotten something deeply important, but can't recall what it is, until she notices Yuki walking by, holding Mo's hand, along with his parents. Meanwhile, as a god, Yuki still resides in the ruined second world, living alongside Murmur for 10,000 years. Eventually, as the world crumbles into nothingness, Yuki and Murmur drift among the stars. Murmur suggests he uses his god powers to create a baddie for him to clap, or anything, but Yuki refuses, as without Yuno, his life is meaningless, and all he can think about is her, the one he loves, so he stays in his new empty world, with nothing but memories of his love for the next billions of years. But billion years ago in the third world, after Yuki and his Murmur went back to their world, the first Murmur refused to let it end there, and quickly turned Yuno into a crystal and swallowed it. But the third world Murmur stopped her from doing more damage to the timeline, and locked her. Then Deus and Murmur continue cleaning up the dimensional mess left behind in the third world. Deus summons Minini to his cathedral, revealing that he is dying, and asks Minini to succeed him as god. Minini refuses, explains that she is now a mother and originally comes from the second world. Deus, already aware of the second world and Yuki's ascension, understands. Minini thanks Deus for everything he has done for her, but insists that divinity is not part of her path. Then, years later, the third world Yuno forgot about everything as she grew up, and enjoys her normal school life befriending Akase and the others, fooling around during trips in daily life. But when she saw the school Yuki saved her from the other Yuno, she struggled to remember the man who saved her before. One day, while resting at home, Yuno talks to herself, present memories of Yuki and her past life surfacing, but she cannot fully remember him. As she lies on her bed struggling to recall, a sudden shift in reality catches Murmur and Deus's attention. Without warning, Yuno awakens inside Deus's cathedral. Confused and disoriented, she confronts Murmur, demanding answers. Murmur orders her to leave, but Yuno insists on staying to find the truth. Minini appears, attacking Mir as part of a promise she made to the second world Yuki, whom she secretly misses. While battling Mir, Minini orders Yuno to keep going to get her memories back, and asks her to deliver a message to Yuki and tell him that Minini sent her regards. Yuno moves forward but is stopped by Akise, who blocks her path. He warns her that she is walking a dangerous road, revealing that alternate versions of her have murdered countless people to win a deadly game, where the victor becomes God. He explains that the person Yuno seeks ultimately sacrificed himself to ensure Yuno lives a happy life, and that finding him will destroy everything he fought for, even though her other self tried to exploit him. Yuno, unable to remember Yuki but determined to find answers, pushes past Akise despite his warnings. Fearing she'll follow the same destructive path, Akise tries to stop her, but she swiftly defeats him. But even in defeat, Akise accepts it gracefully and wishes Yuno the best. Yuno then reaches a massive sphere where Deus and Murmur imprison the second world Murmur. When Murmur escapes Minini's grasp to stop Yuno, Deus intervenes, forbidding interference. He reveals that this Murmur alone can help Yuno reunite with the second world Yuki, and Deus believes that if their love transcends even time itself, then they should let fate decide their fate. Yuno steps inside and confronts the imprisoned Murmur, who breaks down in tears, confessing she has long tweeted this moment to fulfill the past Yuno's final wish. She presents Deus's core, which contains the memories of the previous Yuno. In tears, Yuno takes the core from the second Yuno and regens the second world Yuno's memories, and her love for Yuki flooding back. Back with our Yuki, he still resides in the ruined second world, living alongside Murmur for 10,000 years. Eventually, as the world crumbles into nothingness, Yuki and Murmur drift among the stars. One day, Yuki's future diary predicts Yuno's death. But then, miraculously it changes, showing that Yuno saves both him and Murmur. Suddenly a brilliant light appears above him, and Yuki is stunned to see Yuno alive. She embraces him tightly, and Yuki, overwhelmed, asks how she found him. Yuno smiles and tells him there's no need to rush. For now, they have a promise to fulfill together, and they will finally see the stars and be together for eternity in their own world. Comment down below, diary if you watched till the end. Subscribe so you don't miss the next video.